Chapter 590. Then why didn't you make a move? When Xiang was stunned, Su Xingfeng glanced at him and didn't say anything. However, when Xiang instantly understood, and his expression was complicated. He knew why Su Xingfeng didn't dare to make a move when he thought about Lin Sun's performance after overcoming the 6th level of the heavenly tribulation. That guy was too powerful. He had slaughtered the experts of various races until their blood flowed like a river. He was unparalleled, and even chosen ones did not dare to face him head-on. Under such circumstances, even if he was Su Xingfeng, he would not dare to act rashly. When Xiang couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he thought of this, indeed, after Lin Xian advanced to the Tao Insight realm, he's not like before. Even I feel inexplicable pressure when facing him. Have you heard of the strongest absolute path of cultivation in the ancient times? Su Xingfeng suddenly said. When Xiang was instantly moved, you mean Lin Xian has actually stepped onto such a path? Isn't it said that it's impossible for such a path to appear in the current times? 100 years later, an unprecedented calamity of the Great Way will erupt, and a great battle will begin. Under such circumstances, it's not impossible for the absolute path to appear again. Su Xingfeng's expression was cold with a trace of seriousness, but I never expected that a little cultivator from the mortal world would be able to touch this path. It's really unbelievable. As far as he knew, the absolute path to cultivation was a general term that represented the strongest path of cultivation. It was extremely rare in the ancient times, and very few people could step onto it. Since Lin Xian was able to step onto this path, it was undoubtedly too terrifying and heaven-defying. Since it's like this, Senior Brother Su, should we give up on the plan to seize that pagoda? When Xiang's expression changed indeterminately. Give up? Su Xingfeng shook his head and flames flickered in his eyes. That's a pagoda made of divine iron of creation. How can we give up just like that? When Xiang's eyes narrowed, what does Senior Brother Su plan to do? Su Xingfeng said, do you recognize the black-clothed man who tried to assassinate Lin Xian? If I'm not wrong, that fellow is definitely Senior Brother Xiao Ran. When Xiang's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed. Could it be Senior Brother Gongsun Yu as well? According to what I know, Senior Brother Xiao Ran is currently guarding the Violet Cloud Divine Mountain, waiting for the demonic saint's land of fortune to appear. He shouldn't have come here just to deal with Lin Xian, right? Gongsun Yu? Haha. He doesn't know the myriad transformations Tao Physique Sutra. Su Xingfeng sneered. Myriad transformations Tao Body Scripture. When Xiang's expression changed abruptly as he cried out involuntarily. Didn't you personally prove that this ancient ultimate technique doesn't exist a few years ago? Several years ago, in a forbidden area of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasures, it was rumored that a long-lost supreme technique, the myriad transformations Taoist scripture, had suddenly appeared in the world and was obtained by a disciple of the sect, causing a great sensation at that time. However, in the end, no one knew which disciple obtained this lost skill. Later on, it was the headmaster of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasures who personally stepped forward to quell this disturbance. It's not that it doesn't exist, but the origins of this ultimate technique are too great. Once it's exposed, it's bound to attract countless troubles. So, those big shots unanimously decided to seal off this information for the sake of protecting Xiao Ran. They don't want him to attract the covetous eyes of others because of this ultimate technique. Su Xingfeng's eyes flickered with a cold light. Originally, I was also suspicious, but I couldn't be sure. However, after witnessing the secret technique executed by the black-clothed man just now, I'm completely convinced that it's definitely the myriad transformations Taoist scripture. Only such an ultimate technique can allow one to transform into a myriad of forms without any flaws. It's truly miraculous and unparalleled. When Su Xingfeng spoke up to this point, he gritted his teeth and said, "Do you know why I've always been afraid of Xiao Ran? It's because this fellow is too shrewd. He's usually like a wild crane that doesn't care about worldly affairs, but only I know that in the entire holy land of spiritual treasures, his schemes are the most terrifying. His voice carried envy, fear, and even indescribable hatred. Senior Brother Su, even if that black-clothed man executed the myriad transformations Taoist scripture, it seems to be unable to prove that he's Senior Brother Xiao-Ran, right? Wen Xiang still didn't believe it. In his impression, Xiao-Ran had always been warm, modest, and made others feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. He was like a flowing cloud in the horizon, and he was indescribably aloof and broad-minded. This caused him to be unable to call Xiao-Ran a scheming person. You may know a person for a long time, but you don't know his true nature. There are some things that I'm unable to tell you clearly, but I can tell you with certainty that the black-clothed man that assassinated Lin Xian is definitely Xiao-Ran. Su Xingfeng couldn't be bothered to explain. But, what does this have to do with us seizing the pagoda in Lin Xian's possession? Wen Xiang asked while staring blankly at him. Cooperate. Su Xingfeng replied very directly. We'll go look for Xiao-Ran and cooperate with him. I believe that for the sake of seizing the fortune in Lin Xian's possession, he will surely not refuse. But what if Senior Brother Xiao-Ran also wants that pagoda? Wen Xiang said worriedly. He didn't have the confidence to compete with Xiao-Ran for this opportunity. Lin Sun has not only that pagoda, but also a fortune from the sacred island of 5 elements. Since it's a cooperation, Xiao-Ran can't take it all by himself, can he? Su Xingfeng chuckled. What's more, if he doesn't agree, I'll expose his identity and tell junior sister Jing Xian that Senior Brother Xiao-Ran, whom she respects and admires most, is the real murderer who repeatedly assassinated Lin Xian. Wen Xiang gasped with a hiss. This plan was really ruthless. In the depths of a mountain, Lin Sun dug out a cave residence and set up a spiritual formation to conceal the aura. If it's not Su Xingfeng or Wen Xiang, then it must be one of the 3, Xiao-Ran, Gongsun Yu, or Yunche. Yunche cultivates the great way of killing. Although his fighting capacity is extremely terrifying, he is still at the level of Sea Spirit Realm. Even if he has reached the level of Tao Insight Realm like me, it's impossible for him to have the peerless secret method of transforming himself into thousands of things. So, there are only Xiao-Ran and Gongsun Yu left. So, who on earth is it? Lin Sun sat there with his legs crossed, still pondering in his mind. Lin Sun couldn't help but be vigilant after being assassinated twice in succession and letting the assassin escape with ease. In his impression, Xiao-Ran was an existence that was indistinct like smoke and cloud. He was extraordinary and stood aloof from worldly affairs, and he gave others an indifferent and distant feeling. Gongsun Yu, on the other hand, was a descendant of the Green Sheep Spirit clan, elegant, noble, and proud. According to Zhao Jingxian, under Gongsun Yu's proud appearance, there was actually a pure heart. He wasn't really arrogant. No matter how Lin Sun looked at it, Xiao-Ran and Gongsun Yu didn't look like mysterious and ruthless assassins. Their images were so different that it was hard to associate them with assassins. But the more it was like this, the more Lin Sun dared not to be negligent, because he knew that opponents who were good at disguising themselves were the most dangerous and terrifying. No matter who it is, when we meet again, I will make sure that they have nowhere to hide. After a long time, Lin Sun took a deep breath, and a touch of determination flashed in his deep black eyes. Without thinking any further, Lin Sun took out the wordless pagoda and sensed the first floor of the pagoda. Zhao Jingxian was meditating motionlessly. Although the injuries all over her body were healing, Lin Sun was keenly aware that the situation inside her body was still not optimistic. Obviously, in the previous battle, she had suffered far more serious injuries than he had imagined, and all this was to protect Lin Sun. This made Lin Sun feel both touched and guilty. This time, He really didn't expect that Zhao Jingxian would show up to help him, and even fight for time to recover at the risk of her life. It was precisely because he hadn't expected this that he was especially shocked when he learned of all this, and Lin Sun had indescribably complicated emotions. But no matter what, from now on, he would never tolerate Zhao Jingxian being bullied again. At the same time, Lin Sun hated Yu Shaosheng and the others even more. He swore in his heart, "Don't let me run into you again." Cough cough. At this moment, Jean Di, who had been meditating cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes and coughed weakly. "Lin Sun, my injuries this time are too serious. Things aren't looking good." Lin Sun already knew what old Toad wanted to shit the moment it stuck out its butt. Hearing this, he said directly, "Sorry, I've already used up all the Lantern King ginseng." Old Toad instantly became anxious. "Qilin grass is fine too," Lin Sun said unhappily. "Even if you want to use Qilin grass, Miss Zhao needs it more than you do." Old Toad coughed dryly again with a helpless look on its face. "How about this? This king has a supreme prescription that can be called peerless. There's no need for Qilin grass. You just need to gather the various elixirs according to the prescription, and perhaps this king will recover completely." Seeing that Lin Sun wasn't fooled, Old Toad rolled his eyes and said, "Of course, this prescription is also very useful for that girl's injuries. Don't you want to give it a try? She almost lost her life for you. Do you have the heart not to take some remedial action?" Sure enough, Lin Sun was moved this time. He obtained the so-called peerless prescription from Old Toad, and his face immediately darkened after a brief examination. The hundreds of spiritual herbs listed on the prescription were all extremely rare and precious. This wasn't a big deal, but the most hateful thing was that Lin Sun happened to have all these spiritual herbs on him. This made one wonder whether Old Toad had already figured out the spiritual herbs on him, and thus deliberately took out this prescription in order to swindle some of them from him. "Old Toad, did you already plan this?" Lin Sun's expression was unkind. Old Toad looked puzzled. "What plan? Don't accuse me wrongly," Lin Sun said expressionlessly. "If you admit it, I won't bother to haggle with you and will immediately refine the precious medicine for you. But if you still refuse to comply, then I won't be polite." Although this toad was very loyal, its character was too annoying. It always wanted to take advantage of others and plunder treasures. Chapter 591. Under Lin Sun's undisguised threat, the old toad finally bowed its head in embarrassment and admitted it. But it still insisted and patted its chest to assure Lin Sun that it was doing this to help himself and Zhao Jingxian recover as soon as possible, without the slightest selfishness. Lin Sun rolled his eyes and didn't bother to pay attention to it. But in the end, Lin Sun still took action. He had prepared 3 bronze furnaces, all of which were spiritual weapons. They weren't very precious, but they could definitely be used to decoct treasured medicines. At this moment, the old toad was in high spirits as if it had transformed into an alchemist guru, throwing elixirs into the 3 furnaces at lightning speed. Of course, these elixirs were all taken from Lin Sun, including wisteria snow ganoderma, moonlight grass, and other rare treasured medicines. There were hundreds of them, some of which Lin Sun had collected himself, but most of them were spoils of war from the enemies he had killed these days. This 1,000-year-old Poria Coco's flower is perfect for replenishing blood and qi. Together with 9-leaf cloud radish fruit, cyan auspicious root, Luohan vine, the effect will be amazing. The old toad looked excited, muttering to itself as it threw all kinds of elixirs into the furnaces without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, a fragrant aroma filled the air, making people feel comfortable all over. The furnaces were glittering and overflowing with treasures, such as black marrow jade lotus, scarlet demon snow orchid, golden vine, and other treasured medicines, which dyed the furnaces with a layer of bright light. The fragrance of the elixirs was so strong that it was almost tangible, making people feel as if they were about to ascend to heaven. This was absolutely the most extravagant elixir Lin Sun had refined since he started his cultivation. The elixirs he used were all treasures that had long been extinct in the outside world and could only be found in the secret realm of Demon Saint. Now they were all thrown into 3 furnaces for refining, which could be called a magnificent feat. Of course, the elixirs in the 3 furnaces were different, so the elixirs refined were destined to be different, because they were prepared for Zhao Jingxian, the Old Toad, and Lin Sun respectively. The first 2 were for healing, while Lin Sun was for consolidating his cultivation, so the elixirs refined were naturally different. It had to be said that Old Toad was indeed a connoisseur of medicine. He was extremely familiar with the characteristics of various spirit medicines, and it was obvious that he had grasped quite a few unique pill recipes. This allowed him to mix treasured medicines with great ease and familiarity. This was the innate talent of the 3-legged golden toad race. They could identify all kinds of rare treasures. If they were to become alchemists, they would definitely be outstanding talent. Not long after, the Old Toad searched in Lin's storage bag for a long time and found a pile of fire cloud gems. Using them as the fire source, it began to refine. The glow of flames surged. In the blink of an eye, the furnaces each emanated a multicolored glow that flowed through space, and the fragrance was so fragrant that it seemed capable of entering the depths of one's soul, causing one to be intoxicated. In the end, Zhao Jingxian was called and woke up from meditation. Before she could ask more questions, she was invited by Lin Sun and Old Toad to enter the first stove to cultivate. Of course, he took off all his clothes. Under Lin Sun's cold gaze, the Old Toad didn't dare to peek. Even so, Zhao Jingxian still felt slightly embarrassed and uncomfortable. After taking off her clothes with her back facing the 2 of them, her pale face was dyed red. Fortunately, after sitting in the stove, she calmed down and began to meditate quietly. Boy, you think too much. How can I be the kind of pervert who likes to peep? Old Toad grumbled as if it was complaining. Soon after, it couldn't wait any longer and leaped into the second furnace with a comfortable grin on its face. His figure transformed into the original form of the 3-legged golden toad. He squatted in the stove and began to meditate. Humph, if I find out that you are peeping, I will roast you directly and eat you. I heard that toad legs are very chewy, warned Lin Sun. After confirming that there was no accident, Lin Sun also stepped into the 3rd stove and sat cross-legged there. The medicinal juice in the stove was strong. Spiritual herbs floated one after another. Some were golden, some were white, some were red like flames, and some were overflowing with moonlight. It was gorgeous and fragrant. This was indeed extravagant and incomparably shocking. Even if the great figures of the various clans saw this, they would probably be astounded. They could only provide this type of precious medicine to a limited number of inheritors, and it was impossible for them to casually bring it out. Lin Sun meditated quietly and recited the ancestral Taoist scripture of illusions in his mind. Suddenly, there was a sound of scripture chanting, which made Lin Sun empty both inside and outside of his body. Then, the nature insight and spirit devour scripture was running, making the cave heaven tumble and the Taoist rhyme roar. On the simple and unadorned Taoist platform, 3 white jade-like treasure lights fell, spreading a holy and vast aura. In a trance, Lin Sun completely forgot himself. Soon, he fell into a deep level of cultivation, consolidating and tempering his realm. In addition to spiritual herbs, there were some minerals and spiritual materials in the stove, such as fist-shaped greenwood crystal, palm-sized silver horned worm, and iron-like 6-legged jade cicada. All these made the medicinal juice in the stove full of spirituality and vitality. The dense mist was steaming, and all kinds of auspicious air were flowing. The essence was so strong that it could not be dissolved. Lin Sun's body was constantly scoured and purified by the medicinal power. With the medicinal power as a primer, it was integrated into the whole body, nourishing and tempering. After breaking through the realm, the most taboo was that the foundation was unstable. Therefore, all practitioners would choose to practice for a period of time until the realm was completely stabilized. Now, Lin Sun was consolidating his realm. The Tao Insight realm was divided into 3 levels, namely the initial realm, the middle realm, and the upper realm. Each level had its own magic. However, as long as one reached the Tao Insight realm, he would begin to explore the real Tao and begin to comprehend and control the power of the Tao. This was destined to be a brand new realm, completely different from the past. For Lin Sun, his path was different from other Tao Insight realms. It was a kind of ultimate path after extreme sublimation, which belonged to one of the strongest paths that could only be seen in ancient times. For example, when he was at the Spirit Sea realm, he had already grasped the water Tao aura. Now, after experiencing the tempering and baptism of the 6 peerless lightning tribulations, he possessed the heavenly abode Tao platform that could only be established at the heavenly abode realm. Moreover, the Tao platform had integrated a trace of the power of order and law transformed from heaven tribulation, which made it strong, magnificent, sacred, simple, and extraordinary. The most unbelievable thing was the 3 grotto heaven treasure lights that were circling the Tao platform. Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. These 3 rays of treasure light were the manifestation of extreme Taoism, representing Lin Sun's ultimate foundation. Although Lin Sun didn't know what the magical effect of these 3 Tao Insight lights was, it could be foreseen that with the deepening of his cultivation, he might be able to see the real mystery contained in them one day. In a word, everything Lin Sun had made him stand out in the initial Tao Insight realm, even different from the world. Therefore, the tempering and consolidation he was carrying out at this moment was also to familiarize and master this completely different ultimate power as soon as possible. 3 days later, with a roar like boiling in his body, Lin Sun suddenly opened his eyes and found that the stove had already dried up. All the efficacy of the medicine had been absorbed, leaving only some dregs. I didn't expect that consolidating the realm this time would let me reach the consummation of the initial Tao Insight realm in one fell swoop with the help of the efficacy of the medicine, Lin Sun murmured in his heart. His whole body was as clear and flawless as glass, and every inch of his skin was overflowing with a suffocating luster of Tao Insight, which was indescribably holy and otherworldly. This is the benefit of exploring opportunities. If I didn't enter the secret realm of Demon Saint this time, it would be impossible for me to experience so many hardships and have so many unimaginable gains. Lin Sun had a glimmer of enlightenment in his heart. This was the reason why practitioners in the world were so persistent in looking for opportunities. It might be very dangerous and there might be countless variables, but as long as there was a chance encounter or an inadvertent tribulation, practitioners would have a completely different transformation and become different from the past. If he had stayed in the Forbidden City all the time, he would never have such a change. Lin Sun walked out of the stove and put on his clothes. At this moment, he could clearly feel that he was stronger than before. His cultivation and strength were completely stabilized and under his control, without any stagnation. Looking around, his abyss-like black eyes were flowing with a kind of profound luster that could swallow the sky. At this moment, Lin Sun's every move had a kind of Tao insight, a kind of invincible belief, and a kind of unparalleled demeanor. He even had a slight desire to take a stroll in the outside world. It would be best if he could encounter a peerless existence and have a spar with him to verify his strength. "What are you looking at?" Suddenly, Lin Sun caught a glimpse of Old Toad poking its head out of the stove and sneakily looking at Zhao Jingxian in the first stove. With a snap, Lin Sun hit Old Toad's forehead with his palm. Old Toad grimaced in pain and shouted, "Damn it, why did you hit me so hard? Are you trying to kill me? If you dare to look at her again, I'll roast you and eat you." Lin Sun looked unkind. Old Toad's expression froze and it said angrily, I was worried about Miss Zhao's safety and wanted to see if she had recovered from her injury. I'm not as dirty and wretched as you think. Am I that kind of person? Of course you're not a person. You're a toad. Haven't you heard that a toad wants to eat swan meat? You wish. Lin Sun sneered. You're humiliating me. If you don't apologize, I'll fight you to the end for the dignity of the three-legged golden toad tribe. Old Toad looked serious and dignified. Well, I was just worrying about where to find a target to practice with. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to my door. Lin Sun rubbed his fists and palms together, eager to have a try. Old Toad's face changed. After a long time, it let out a sigh and said, Forget it, I'm a magnanimous person. I don't want to take advantage of a small human brat like you. Puff. Suddenly, a peal of laughter rang out from the first stove. It was as sweet as the sound of nature and indescribably pleasant to the ear. It was Zhao Jingxian who had woken up from meditation. Lin Sun immediately looked over. But the next moment, he was a little embarrassed. From his angle, he just happened to see a section of Zhao Jingxuan's exposed white skin. The picture was very charming and very erotic. Chapter 592. Inside the furnace, Zhao Jingxuan's body was glistening and smooth, her beautiful hair falling down like a waterfall. Her back was to Lin Sun, revealing a section of her delicate and fair back. Her shoulders were as sharp as a knife, her lotus arms were like mist and snow, and her slender snow-white goose neck shone with an alluring luster. It was just a view of her back that seemed to have been cut out, but it gave off an incomparably breathtaking feeling. In the past, Zhao Jingxian had always been a woman dressed as a man. Her face was bright and clear, and her bearing was natural and unrestrained. Now, her long hair was loose and her fragrant shoulders were bare. That kind of graceful scene was naturally especially impactful. Lin Sun couldn't help but be startled at this moment. He immediately looked away and pretended to be calm, but in fact, there was still a trace of amazement left in his heart. Bah! You still won't let me see? You're almost drooling when you see it. Shameless, really shameless. You're simply a beast in human clothing. Next to him, Old Toad seized the opportunity to attack without restraint. Lin Sun immediately flew into a rage out of shame. He stared at Old Toad and said, Am I as unbearable as you say? If you make slanderous accusations again, I'll kill you first. Old Toad rolled its eyes and said disdainfully, What? Now that your true shamelessness has been exposed, you're going to kill me to silence me? As the two quarreled, Zhao Jingxuan's pretty face was also flushed in the furnace. There was a trace of embarrassment and annoyance in her clear eyes. She bit her lustrous red lips and glanced around. Seeing that the two of them had their backs to her, she hurriedly got up from the furnace and put on her clothes. But what was worse was that at the same time, Lin Sun turned his head and quickly explained, Miss Zhao, don't listen to this toad. Before he could finish speaking, he was stunned to see a graceful figure walk out of the furnace like a hibiscus out of the water. Her legs were slender and as white as mutton-fat jade, incomparably moving. Her waist was slender and full of luster, and further down, her round and plump ewe. Suddenly, a clear rebuke rang in Lin Sun's ears like a clap of thunder. He was so startled that his whole body stiffened and he hurriedly looked away. At the same time, his heart was thumping wildly. The scene he had inadvertently caught a glimpse of just now was simply too thrilling. Any normal man would have their blood boiling. But at this moment Lin Sun's scalp was numb, and he had no other thoughts in his mind. He felt a cold, killing intent locked on him. Needless to say, it must be Zhao Jingxian. Ha ha ha, you're in big trouble. Old Toad winked and smiled, taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. Shut up! Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian shouted at the same time. The former became angry out of shame, while the latter's face was as cold as frost. Meanwhile, Zhao Jingxian had already changed into a set of violet clothes that concealed her graceful and slender body. but her jet black and beautiful hair hadn't been coiled into a bun in time, and it hung down. Coupled with her peerlessly beautiful features and skin that was moist and smooth, it caused her to have a gorgeous charm that wasn't present in the past. I really didn't mean it just now," Lin Sun explained embarrassedly. Since he started his cultivation, he had always been a man of few desires. It was also the first time for him to encounter such an alluring scene. Although he was amazed, he couldn't help feeling anxious. "I think you did it on purpose." Old Toad took advantage of every opportunity to add insult to injury. Lin Sun gnashed his teeth in hatred and wished he could skin this toad alive. At this moment, Zhao Jingxuan's mood was also a little subtle. She took a deep breath and said, "We cultivators don't need to stick to such details. There's no need to mention this matter in the future." She was obviously pretending to be calm, and her words were very awkward. But Lin Sun was relieved and said with a smile, "That couldn't be better." Unexpectedly, before he could finish speaking, Zhao Jingxian glared at him fiercely. Her red lips were moist and her pearly white teeth were like jade. At this moment, when she glared at him, there was a hint of shame and resentment in her clear eyes, which actually had a different kind of charm. Lin Sun also couldn't bear it. In the past, Zhao Jingxian dressed up as a man, with a natural and unrestrained manner and a hearty temperament. Although Lin Sun knew she was a woman, he didn't have many other thoughts. But now Zhao Jingxian was different from before. She had the posture of a girl, with a jade face and picturesque eyebrows. She was like a peerless beauty who stood aloof from the world. Coupled with the breathtaking scenes he had inadvertently glimpsed just now, Lin Sun always felt a little diffident when facing her. Old Toad rubbed his chin and looked the two up and down with his golden eyes, murmuring, "Why do I feel that the relationship between you two is a little strange? In the battle a few days ago, in order to help Lin Sun, you even risked your life, but now you look like you want to bite him to death. It's really weird." Speaking of this, he seemed to understand and patted his forehead. "Is this the legendary love-hate relationship?" The corner of Lin Sun's mouth twitched fiercely. With a bang, Old Toad was directly kicked away by him. Zhao Jingxian commented, "That's a good kick. Very satisfying." Lin Sun smiled and said, "It's our duty to eliminate evil for the people." Old Toad squatted in a corner in grief and indignation, gnashing his teeth and cursing loudly. "What a pair of adulterous husband and wife! I finally see your ugly faces clearly." Before he could finish, Zhao Jingxian couldn't bear it either. She rushed up and gave Old Toad a good beating. Only then did she feel refreshed and asked with a smile, "Where did you find this guy? One look and I can tell he likes to be abused." Looking at Old Toad lying on the ground with a bloody nose and a swollen face, Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. Seeing this, Zhao Jingxian also couldn't help smiling sweetly. Only Old Toad almost burst into tears. He swore in his heart that he would definitely break up this pair of violent madmen and women, otherwise his life was destined to be dark in the future. During this period of seclusion, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad's injuries had completely healed, and their cultivation had also improved. In particular, Zhao Jingxuan's cultivation had been suppressed at the initial stage of Tao Insight Realm by the current emperor for a whole 10 years. According to her foundation, she should have been able to break through to the reincarnation developing realm long ago. Now, after this ordeal, she finally took a step forward and broke through to the middle stage of Tao Insight Realm. Although it was only a small advancement, it undoubtedly made her change, as if she had been reborn. According to her own calculations, ordinary saint-level figures were no longer a match for her. This suddenly reminded Lin Sun of something. As early as before entering the Demon Saint's secret realm, Zhao Jingxian had said that with the help of the 9-Dragon Cauldron, she was even confident to fight against the strong practitioners of reincarnation developing realm. Now that she had made another breakthrough in cultivation, Lin Sun believed that her combat effectiveness must have improved a lot. This was so terrifying that Lin Sun couldn't help but click his tongue. That's nothing. You haven't seen the ruthless people of ancient times. They were the real freaks. Some of them even stepped into the divine path as soon as they were born and were known as born saints. The old toad's saliva flew everywhere as it pointed out the situation. Comparatively speaking, your so-called holy sons and holy daughters may still be considered heavenly geniuses in the current world, but in ancient times they wouldn't be enough. Stop bragging. Lin Sun slapped the back of old Toad's head, which made the latter fly into a rage and curse repeatedly. I've also heard of the horror of ancient times. There were countless geniuses and freaks at that time, and some of them were even spiritual bodies born from heaven and earth. They were like the favored children of God, and the strength of their foundation was even more incredible. As soon as Zhao Jingxian said this, Old Toad immediately became complacent and said, "This chick is really knowledgeable. As far as I know, the ancestor of the six-eared macaque tribe was born from a strange stone born from heaven and earth. As soon as he appeared in the world, he had amazing magic and was extremely terrifying." Speaking of this, Old Toad coughed dryly, looking proud and conceited, and our three-legged golden toad tribe is also born from the destiny of heaven and earth. In terms of foundation, there are only a few who are stronger than us. Bragging again. I don't see how strong your combat effectiveness is, Lin Sun said and slapped the back of Old Toad's head again. Old Toad shouted angrily, "If I hadn't lost the memory of my previous life, I would have climbed to the top of the Great Way and transcended the heavens. How could I be bullied by a shameless and black-hearted human like you? This guy is a descendant of the three-legged golden toad, which is really amazing. Their tribe was really not simple in the ancient times. They could seek fortune and avoid misfortune, recognize all things, and were born with auspicious signs." Zhao Jingxian looked thoughtful. She was also a little surprised. She hadn't expected Jean Dui to be from the three-legged golden toad tribe. In today's world, this tribe was almost extinct, and there was almost no trace of them in the ancient Desolation territory. Brilliant, really brilliant. This Miss Zhao's eyes are like torches. Old Toad gave a thumbs up. I happen to lack a cultivation companion. Miss Zhao, do you want to consider, with a plop, he was sent flying by Lin Sun's punch. A toad wants to eat swan meat? Lin Sun sneered. Old Toad's face was full of hidden bitterness, and he swore in his heart that when he rose to power, he would definitely teach this bastard Lin Sun a lesson. Next, they talked about the pursuit a few days ago, as well as the assassin who had tried to kill Lin Sun twice in a row. When she learned that the assassin was very likely to be either Xiao Ran or Gong Sun Yu, Zhao Jingxian was a little startled and fell into silence. After a long time, she said with clear eyes, "If you know who the killer is, what do you plan to do?" "Eliminate all future troubles." Lin Sun's answer was very simple and decisive. "I'll help you." Unexpectedly, Zhao Jingxian didn't feel embarrassed at this moment, and directly expressed that she would help Lin Sun. "This doesn't seem appropriate. You are all descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure. If you kill each other, it will only put you in a disadvantageous position. Let me handle it alone." Lin Sun looked solemn. "I have my own considerations." Zhao Jingxian smiled and didn't explain much. She changed the topic. "According to my speculation, as long as we go to Zixia Holy Mountain together, we may find out who the real killer is." "Zixia Holy Mountain?" "Yes, that's the place of inheritance of the demon saint. The real opportunity hidden in this secret realm will appear there. As early as a few days ago, the top figures of all tribes have already been waiting there." "Well, let's go there." A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes, and he was full of fighting spirit. On the same day, they left the mountain together, and under Zhao Jingxuan's guidance, rushed to the mysterious Zixia Holy Mountain. P.S. Once again, thank you, Brother Pilipum, for your gift. Tonight's monthly votes exceed 900. Currently, there are 857 votes, only 40 votes short. Chapter 593. There were mountains upon mountains and towering ancient trees. The demon saint's secret realm was extremely vast, with swamps, deserts, mountains, lakes, and so on. It was like a small world isolated from the rest of the world. Lin Sun and the others moved cautiously and vigilantly along the way. This place was extremely dangerous. There were many unknown creatures and killing intents hidden here. A few unremarkable old trees might turn into terrifying creatures in the next moment, devouring all life that passed by. Some ferocious birds built nests on the rock. Their nests shone brilliantly and overflowed with the light of treasures, looking like they were hiding very tempting treasures. However, they would be attacked by the birds once they got close, and it would be difficult to stay alive. Along the way they could also see huge snakes that looked like giant vines. Their bodies were so long that they dangled down from the mountain peaks, and their scales were cold and shocking. There were also ferocious purple spiders with green faces and fangs, colorful centipedes that were more than 3 meters long, and ferocious insects as tall as a man. Those creatures were extremely terrifying and dangerous. Once you stepped into their territory, you might be annihilated. They were clearly the natives of this secret realm. They had almost disappeared from the outside world long ago, but they were now entrenched in various areas of the secret realm, which was chilling. Lin Sun and the others moved cautiously, but even so, they still alarmed a terrifying existence. It was a butterfly the size of a cattail leaf fan. Its wings were overflowing with a colorful luster, and its green eyes were like burning will-o'-the-wisps. It didn't look ferocious, and even had a bewitching and beautiful aura. However, it was extremely dangerous and more terrifying than any of the creatures they had seen before. If Old Toad hadn't reacted quickly and avoided this area with all its might, it might have been killed. This made them suspect that the strange butterfly might be a being in the life and death realm. Boom! In the distance, the butterfly had already been startled awake. It clearly couldn't tolerate Lin Sun and the others escaping, so it gently flapped its wings and set off a colorful storm. The colorful divine light blazed and turned into a storm that rumbled and swept through the world. Wherever it passed, mountains crumbled, the earth cracked, and the void wailed. It was a terrifying scene. From a distance, the phantom butterfly looked like a king standing between heaven and earth. Enshrouded in colorful light, it looked very gorgeous, but when it flapped its wings, it could cause world-destroying destruction. It was too terrifying. Lin Sun and the others were almost killed. Fortunately, they had already avoided it. Furthermore, because of the storm that the butterfly had kicked up, it had alarmed a nearby green fox. It immediately leaped out and let out a dissatisfied howl. Boom! The azure fox was handsome and possessed an ethereal aura like that of an immortal. It spat out a stream that was clear like moonlight from its mouth, and it just happened to be like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens as it swept towards the butterfly in the distance. In an instant, an intense battle erupted in that area. The impetus of the battle shook the heavens and the earth, and it was extremely terrifying. These are definitely 2 life and death realm powerful beasts. Old Toad sucked in a cold breath. Let's go. Lin Sun didn't have time to observe and rushed to the distance with all his strength. The scene just now reminded him of the golden-winged roc and peerless serpent he had seen in the depths of the desert. They were equally terrifying. This demonic saint mystic realm is too dangerous. There are terrifying great demons everywhere. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, who would believe it? Both Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian felt that the secret realm of Demon Saint was not simple. Its origin was unpredictable, and it was by no means as simple as the place of inheritance of the Demon Saint. I've even seen the 5 elements sacred island. Lin Sun told Zhao Jingxian some of his experiences and discussed them together. Before going to Zixia Holy Mountain, I've also seen several places of opportunity, all of which are filled with the aura of sages, similar to the 5 elements sacred island you mentioned. However, those places of opportunity have long been occupied by other races, so I don't know what's hidden in them. Lin Sun couldn't help but be awestruck by Zhao Jingshuan's words. It turned out that there were many places of opportunity, like the Five Elements Sacred Island in the demonic Saint Mystic realm. There's no need to guess. I have a general idea of where this place is. Suddenly, Old Toad looked fanatical, and his golden eyes were shining. He said, "This is the place where the sages preach. It's a place for cultivation prepared by the ancient sages for their descendants. They hope that when their descendants are born one day, they can transcend the past and create a new legend." There was a trace of excitement in his voice. "It's a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal. If I'm not mistaken, the creator of this secret realm is not one person, but a king of the Holy Tao who led a group of sages to create it. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to survive the passage of time until now. My God! This is the Ruins of End, one of the 4 great ancient ruins of Tao. It's such a taboo and terrifying place, yet they actually established a secret realm here with the intention of seizing a great fortune for their descendants. Such extravagance is simply world-shocking." Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian looked at each other and were secretly surprised. In ancient times, a king of the Holy Tao led a group of sages to the ultimate to open up a secret realm and build a Taoist field, all for their descendants. They hoped that when they awakened, they could transcend the past and create a new legend. If this was true, it was indeed too shocking. Why did they do this? Could it be that they foresaw something, so they decided to arrange a way out for their descendants and didn't want them to repeat their mistakes? The more they thought about it, the more frightened they became. The ancient sages were so terrifying that even they seemed to have encountered a difficult problem and began to prepare a new way for their descendants. This was too shocking. Do you remember the little child you mentioned? He must be a descendant of a sage. You seized some of the fortune around him, so when he comes out, he will certainly be the first to come after you. The descendants of a sage are all insufferably arrogant little monsters, incomparably heaven-defying. Speaking of this, Old Toad was a little gloating, as if it was watching a show. Oh! Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and sneered. I can't wait for him to come to me so that I can seize the last part of the Tao scripture of the sage. Aren't you afraid? Old Toad glared. What do you think? Lin Sun slapped the back of Old Toad's head, making the latter grimace in annoyance. In that case, what's hidden in Xixia Holy Mountain may even be a place of fortune left by a king of the Holy Tao. Zhao Jingxian suddenly opened her mouth, her clear eyes full of surprise. Indeed. Old Toad nodded, but you must be careful. Maybe the descendant of the Holy King is also sleeping there. Such a person's origin is even greater and more terrible. If you want to get a share of the fortune there, it is bound to be more dangerous. If that's really the case, I'd rather give up this fortune. Zhao Jingxian muttered. After all, the consequences will be much more serious if you get involved with a descendant of the Holy King. Before Lin Sun could speak, Old Toad was the first to get anxious, shouting, Don't! Since we're already here, how can we go back empty-handed? What bullshit descendant of the Holy King? I'm just speculating blindly, don't take it seriously. Don't be scared off. Lin Sun immediately laughed. This damn greedy toad was willing to do anything for the sake of fortune. I'm serious. Do you know what the all-living preaching land is? To put it simply, it could be summed up in 8 words. Passing on the torch, endlessly multiplying. No matter how glorious these sages were, they all died in ancient times. How can the fortune they left behind be monopolized by their descendants? Old Toad's expression was solemn and solemn. As the saying goes, fortuitous encounters are destined by the heavens. If we are the first to seize that fortuitous encounter, that proves that the fortuitous encounter does not belong to those descendants, and vice versa. Well, this toad was determined to seize the fortune. Both Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were speechless. To be honest, they were quite unwilling to give up on the fortune and leave just like that. No matter what their guesses were, It wouldn't be too late to make a decision after going there to take a look. After making their decision, they continued on their way. This secret realm was full of spiritual objects. There were all kinds of rare spiritual herbs, spiritual materials, and minerals, which were all treasures that were almost extinct in the outside world and were astonishingly valuable. Lin Sun and the others picked up quite a few good things along the way. Of course, when they ran into some extremely dangerous areas, they still avoided them early, not daring to approach or offend them. By the time they were close to Zixia Holy Mountain, Lin Sun's storage ring was already filled with piles of spiritual herbs that were incomparably fragrant. Spiritual materials were piled up and filled with treasure light, as well as all kinds of ores and rare treasures of immeasurable value. If it weren't for the fact that this secret realm was too dangerous and unknown, Lin Sun would have stayed here to continue cultivating. Along the way, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad also had their own gains. The two of them also sighed with emotion. This secret realm was simply a natural treasure trove, a blessed land for cultivation. Unfortunately, it was too dangerous, and one careless move could lead to death. Before long, a giant purple mountain appeared in their field of vision. It was extremely majestic and towering, rising straight into the sky. Its whole body was covered in purple flames, overflowing with multicolored light, ancient and vast. It was indeed like a holy mountain, like a miracle. Just one glance at it was enough to shock people. It was impossible to imagine how long it had existed. Purple chi from the east, divine light, immortal Taoist fire, everlasting. Old Toad's whole body stiffened, its pair of golden eyes blazing and surging with a shocking luster. The atmosphere here is sacred and boundless. It definitely hides a great fortune. It's really extraordinary. Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked. That Zixia Holy Mountain was filled with a kind of lofty and supreme aura, which made him feel a sense of awe. Let's go, they've been waiting there for a long time. Zhao Jingxian led the way, her figure fluttering towards the distant Zixia Holy Mountain. She had been here before. It was not until now that Lin Sun suddenly realized that in the nearby area, many strong figures had appeared from time to time. They were densely packed, and their goal was the same: to rush towards the distant Zixia Holy Mountain. This opportunity hadn't appeared yet, but it had already attracted the attention of so many forces. It could be seen that when the opportunity really appeared, this Zixia Holy Mountain was bound to set off a monstrous storm, and competition and killing were bound to be inevitable. Chapter 594. Something is wrong. There is some kind of change here. Suddenly, Zhao Jingxian, who was leading the way, stopped and her face changed slightly. She acutely noticed that a mysterious and divine energy of restrictions surged in the nearby space with violet glow divine mountain at its center, and it caused others to be unable to fly through space. Walking in it was like being trapped in a quagmire. Even if one had the fastest body movement, he couldn't fly here. He could only run on the ground. This didn't exist at all when Zhao Jingxian left here last time. We can't fly. Lin Sun also noticed this scene and was surprised. The void seemed to be covered with prohibition, which suppressed the flying power of all practitioners. It's very simple. This amazing opportunity is about to appear, and a test for practitioners is about to begin. The old Toad's eyes were burning and full of longing. Kill! There was a sound of fighting in the distance, accompanied by a strong smell of blood. At the foot of Zixia Sacred Mountain, the strong people of all races gathered and were all climbing. They wanted to rush to the top of the mountain as soon as possible, so terrible conflicts and fierce battles broke out. There was a river of blood and the scene was bloody. The opportunity hasn't appeared yet, so why have they started fighting? Zhao Jingxian was stunned. They are competing for the opportunity to occupy the most advantageous position. When the opportunity appears, they can compete for benefits at the first time. Lin Sun made a judgment after a brief observation. I remember now. A few days ago, when we set foot on this mountain, we found a total of 49 paths leading to the mountain peak. At the end of each path is a different location on the mountain peak. At each location there is an ancient altar. Zhao Jingxian said quickly. At that time there were not many forces here, so there was no fighting and competition. We successfully occupied an altar on the top of the mountain. Now it seems that those forces who have arrived recently are obviously competing for the altar area at the end of each road. Hearing this, Lin Sun suddenly understood. There were 49 roads leading to 49 altars on Zixia Sacred Mountain. Obviously, this layout must have a deep meaning. If they wanted to seize the opportunity, the force that could occupy the altar area could undoubtedly seize the opportunity first. The Great Tao is 50 and the Heavenly Evolution is 49. There is only a slim chance of survival. This is a F*King deadly situation. Old Toad's expression changed. I suddenly have a premonition that a truly great opportunity will appear on this Purple Sun sacred mountain. However, this also means that great danger will come. In the end, only a small group of people will be able to seize the opportunity. Come, let's go to the 9th mountain path. Xiao Ran, Yun Che, and the others have already occupied that place. Let's meet up with them. Zhao Jingxian took a deep breath and continued forward. Lin Sun originally did not want to meet those people. After all, whether it was Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, Xiao Ran, Gongsun Yu, or Yun Che, he was afraid that they would all be eyeing him covetously. If a conflict erupted, it would only make things difficult for Zhao Jingxian. Didn't you want to know who tried to assassinate you? We should take advantage of this opportunity to settle this matter once and for all, lest any unforeseen circumstances arise. Zhao Jingxian added as if she had seen through Lin's mind. Lin Sun no longer hesitated. The three of them moved forward cautiously. At this time, they were not the only ones. There were many experts in the nearby areas who had rushed over. They were all in groups and belonged to different clans and forces. Obviously, as time passed, the competition would only become more and more serious. At the foot of Purple Sun Sacred Mountain, the battle was very fierce. Sounds of killing shook the sky in different areas. Many figures frantically rushed up the mountain path, but they died halfway, dyeing the mountain red with blood. Without a doubt, in order to seize the opportunity, the experts of various clans all wanted to occupy an altar at the first moment. No one dared to hold back. This was destined to be the craziest battle before the arrival of the opportunity. The experts were as dense as a forest, killing each other. All kinds of secret techniques and treasures collided, killing each other to the point of insanity. Lin Sun and the others were also on guard, not daring to be careless. However, before they could get close to the 9th mountain path, they were drawn into the battle and were besieged. In fact, it was not only them. When the experts of other clans arrived, they would inevitably engage in killing and fighting. No one could take advantage of the situation. Kill. When the battle broke out, Lin Sun no longer held back. Holding the broken blade, he rushed up the mountain path with Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad. It seemed that there were only 3 of them, but they were like a peerlessly sharp blade. They were invincible and unstoppable all the way. It should be known that Lin Sun alone had defeated the siege of a group of Holy Sons. Moreover, he had hunted them down and defeated the experts of other clans. Blood flowed all the way. They were unstoppable. Now Lin Sun had Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad by his side. How could those experts resist when the 3 of them joined forces? God, it's that young demon god of the human clan. He's here too. Run away. That ferocious killer is here. Before long, Lin Sun's identity was recognized, which immediately set off an uproar. The nearby experts all looked like they had seen a ghost. They kept retreating with fear on their faces. They did not dare to confront Lin Sun at all. The fierce name of the young human clan had already spread throughout the demon saint's secret territory. He was known by the experts of various clans. Therefore, when Lin Sun was recognized at this moment, it set off such a big sensation and made those experts fearful. What was power? That was it. But in this way, it made Lin Sun and his companions much more relaxed. The obstacles in their way were almost gone, and they smoothly set foot on the 9th mountain road. I didn't expect that you're so famous now. As soon as you appeared, you shocked the whole audience and made them consciously retreat. You're so mighty. Zhao Jingxian teased with a smile on her face. Lin Sun shrugged and said, "Don't be careless. There must be someone who is not afraid of death who will jump out." Sure enough, as soon as his voice fell, a terrifying aura suddenly broke out. An expert attacked from one side. "Shut up!" Old Toad immediately cursed. Lin Sun was also speechless for a while. He was just joking just now. He didn't expect that it would come true. Bang! Zhao Jingxian took out the 9 dragons' treasure cauldron and resolved that terrible blow. Yu Shaoxing. Lin Sun saw that the guy who attacked was Yu Shaoxing, the holy son of the Dragon Whale clan. "How dare you come here to die?" Lin Sun's face suddenly darkened. The broken blade crossed the sky and attacked the opponent. As early as a few days ago, Lin Sun had defeated Yu Shaoxing and almost killed him. He didn't expect that Yu Shaoxing still had the courage to run out, which really surprised Lin Sun. But soon, Lin Sun understood that Yu Shaoxing had found more than one helper. The holy son of the demonic elephant clan, the saintess of the Li Wood clan, the holy son of the Jade Scale clan, and the holy son of the Water Ape clan were all among them. In addition to these familiar enemies, there were also some other men and women, all of whom had extraordinary momentum. Obviously, they were all top existences at the holy sun level. No wonder Yu Shaoxing dared to show up. If it was anyone else who drew in such a group of top powerhouses, he would not have any scruples anymore. Boom! The battle had completely erupted. Yu Shaoxing led all the holy children to attack with all his might, and he withdrew various secret treasures and executed profound techniques. Space was dazzling as it flowed with the glow of treasures, and its impetus was shocking to the extreme. In just a moment, Old Toad couldn't hold it anymore, howling and dodging. Even Zhao Jingxian felt strained. She could barely resist with the 9 dragons' treasure cauldron, but couldn't launch a counterattack at all. "You go first." Lin Sun was completely angry. Yu Shaoxing and the holy son of the demonic elephant clan had escaped last time, but this time they joined forces and came to offend him, which was intolerable to Lin Sun. He stood in front of the mountain road alone, with blazing light surging around his body. His Taoist connotation was flowing, and his momentum was disdainful of mountains and rivers. It seemed that he could hold back 10,000 enemies by himself. Boom! The broken blade swept through the air, splitting out a bright river of stars, which rolled back the void and bloomed with dazzling light. He was just one person, but he fought against a group of holy sons by himself. Such a shocking scene even attracted the attention of other nearby powerhouses, who were extremely surprised. This young demon god was so fierce and arrogant. Did he really think that he could dominate the group by himself? "You're courting death. Everyone, let's kill him together and take away his fortune first. Don't you all want to know why he is so incredible? It's because he got the incredible fortune from the holy island of 5 elements." Yu Shaoxing let out a long roar, attributing Lin Sun's strength to the fortune of the holy island of 5 elements. His intention was extremely sinister. Sure enough, those holy sons were all envious. They rushed desperately, making the mountain shake and wreak havoc. Fortunately, they were in Zixia Sacred Mountain, a mysterious forbidden area that couldn't be damaged. If it were in the outside world, the fluctuations of this battle could destroy a mountain and river. "I'll kill you first," Lin Sun roared, releasing a violent aura. His figure was like an ice dragon, breaking through the restraint of the holy sons and attacking Yu Shaoxing. Yu Shaoxing was shocked and quickly dodged. How could he expect that Lin Sun would be so powerful after being besieged like this? Whoosh! Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and a black light shot out. It was not only aimed at Yu Shaoxing, but also some holy sons nearby. This black light was naturally transformed by the spirit-eating insect. No matter how talented Yu Shaoxing was, he had never seen the power of such an ancient insect. He was caught off guard and was drilled into his sea of consciousness by the spirit-eating insect. Suddenly, Yu Shaoxing and several other holy sons screamed. Their faces were distorted and ferocious because of pain, which was particularly horrifying. This made some other holy sons feel cold. What the hell was that? Why was it so mysterious and vicious? Ah! Yu Shaoxing screamed. Realizing the danger, he turned around and wanted to escape. Where are you going? Lin Sun shouted, stepping on the ice dragon steps and breaking forward, many times faster than his opponent. Puff! The broken blade flashed, and a head was thrown into the void. Blood gushed out like a spring. Yu Shaoxing was killed on the spot. The strangest thing was that his wisp of divine soul was clearly being wrapped up by the power of the life spirit bone talisman and was about to teleport and disappear. But the moment he left, his soul suddenly collapsed and was completely devoured by a pitch-black bug that was only the size of a grain of rice. Chapter 595. Yu Shaoxing was dead. Even if the bone talisman saved him at the last moment, it was too late. His soul had been completely devoured, and there was no possibility of resurrection. This bloody and cruel scene caused a wave of gasps to resound in the surroundings, and the expressions of many chosen changed. The reason why they dared to be fearless was that they had the bone talisman. Even if they were killed, they had a chance to survive as long as their souls were not destroyed. But Yu Shaoxing's death was undoubtedly a wake-up call, and they were all terrified. What kind of insect was that? How could it be so terrifying? The battle was still going on. After Lin Sun killed Yu Shaoxing, he swept away his corpse and the dragon bone halberd. Then he shifted his target to the Saint of the Green Scale clan, who was also attacked by the spirit-eating insects and was now howling in pain. Swish! Lin Sun's body glowed, and he rushed out with the broken blade in his hand. The other saints were all fearful. When they attacked again, they were already on guard, afraid to repeat Yu Shaoxing's mistake. This provided Lin Sun with a chance to catch up with the Saint of the Green Scale clan and kill him with all his strength. There was no suspense in this battle. No matter how the Saint roared and struggled, he couldn't resist Lin Sun, and his neck was finally cut off by Lin Sun's broken blade. Blood gushed out and another Saint died. Like Yu Shaoxing, his soul was also devoured by the spirit-eating insects mercilessly, and he didn't even have time to escape. The green jade ruler in his hand was also taken away by Lin Sun along with his corpse. Seeing that Lin Sun killed 2 saints in a row in a flash, and even their treasures were plundered without hesitation, all the people present changed their expressions. Too ruthless. This guy wasn't a young devil at all. He was simply a demon who plucked the feathers of a goose. Not only did he kill, but he also robbed. Retreat. They didn't dare to delay any longer, and all the saints fled. They were originally a temporary alliance, and it was destined that they couldn't work together. When they saw Yu Shaoxing and the Saint of the Green Scale clan being killed, they were scared. Out of a sense of self-preservation, they decisively chose to retreat. Want to leave? It's not that easy. Lin Sun still couldn't vent his hatred. Instead, he chased down the mountain road with the broken sword in his hand. In the blink of an eye, he split the holy son of the demonic elephant clan into 2 halves. Unfortunately, he did not have the help of the soul-eating insects this time, so the opponent escaped with the help of the bone soul talisman. Don't let me see you again. Lin Sun gritted his teeth and looked at the saintess of the Leewood clan and the other saints who had fled far away. In the end, he didn't give chase. The experts in the nearby area moved far away and kept quiet like cicadas in the winter. Their expressions were filled with fear and astonishment, and there was actually not a single person who dared to approach. What's more, this area actually stopped fighting because of Lin Sun. Obviously, they were all shocked by Lin Sun's ferocious means just now. Indeed, who would have thought that a group of saints would be defeated by Lin Sun in the blink of an eye? Even Yu Shaoxing and the Jade Unicorn Holy Sun were killed. There was no possibility of resurrection. This was too shocking, which made those overmatches more and more aware of Lin Sun's horror. Who dared to make trouble at this time? Lin Sun ignored these. While running meditating magic to reseal and suppress the soul-eating insects, he began to plunder the spoils of the demonic elephant clan. After doing all this, he turned around and set foot on the 9th mountain road, floating away alone. From beginning to end, his clothes were clean and spotless, indescribably aloof. Watching him leave, all the heroes in the field breathed a sigh of relief at the same time and secretly wiped their cold sweat. This young devil was so abnormal. But soon, they had no time to care about this and rushed to other nearby mountain roads. No one dared to choose the 9th road anymore. There was no other way. With Lin Sun there, it was like there was a devil there. Who dared to fight for it? Was it not good to be alive? You are really a monster, boy. On the mountain road, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad didn't leave. They had been paying attention to the field. When they saw Lin Sun float back from the battlefield like a cloud of dust, Old Toad couldn't help murmuring, "Don't talk nonsense. Let's go." Lin Sun squinted at Old Toad. Every time he saw this guy, he had an impulse to beat him, but he didn't know why. Maybe this guy's temperament was too wretched and deserved a beating? "Those insects are very powerful," Zhao Jingxian said thoughtfully. Of course, she could see that the reason why Lin Sun could kill his opponents so neatly in the battle was because of those insects. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Lin Sun to kill them in a short time under the siege of a group of saints. "Let's go." Lin Sun smiled and didn't explain anything. Zixia Holy Mountain was ancient and sacred, with a kind of lofty and boundless atmosphere. Even the mountain road was full of vicissitude. Walking on it, it was like returning to the ancient times. Everything in sight was sacred. Kill! In front of them, there was still a scuffle. Some strong people were fighting. Obviously, these were the strong people who had rushed up the mountain road earlier. But they met on the road and a conflict broke out. Boom! In the scuffle, some strong people attacked Lin Sun and the others. Obviously, they didn't know what had just happened at the foot of the mountain. Lin Sun didn't bother to talk nonsense. Whoever attacked him, he would kill them without holding back. In just a moment, they fought their way out of the encirclement and continued on their way, leaving piles of corpses and pools of blood on their way. Seeing that the situation was bad, some strong people immediately admitted defeat and took the initiative to avoid the disaster. At this time, Lin Sun was like a real devil. His broken sword was stained with blood as he climbed the mountain road with Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad. Wherever they passed, anyone who tried to attack would be mercilessly killed by Lin Sun. Along the way, more than 10 strong people were killed one after another, including a saint. Unfortunately, his bone talisman was still there, so he escaped death. At the same time, outside the ultimate, the big shots couldn't calm down. Because the big opportunity of Zixia Holy Mountain was about to open, they were all paying attention here. On this day, many fierce battles broke out, and no one knew how many strong people died. Some core figures brought back by the bone talisman also brought back the latest news. Heroes have gathered at Zixia Holy Mountain. I wonder who will defeat all the enemies and have the last laugh. The big shots sighed, their emotions surging. According to their deduction, the opportunity hidden in Zixia Holy Mountain was definitely the most valuable in the Demon Saint's secret land. But because of this opportunity, our clans have also lost too many people. It can be said that blood has flowed like a river. It's really sad. There were also big shots who lamented that this great opportunity was accompanied by a great killing intent. Too many strong people were destined to die, causing great losses to the clans. But there was no other way. This was an opportunity. If a corresponding price was not paid, how could it be obtained so easily? It's just a few people died. Why are you so sad? At any time, the struggle for the great path is bound to be accompanied by blood and killing. No one can avoid it. Once you step on this path, there is no turning back. These words were a little harsh, causing many big shots to frown. When they looked over, they realized that the speaker was Grandmother Tiansha of the Dragon Whale clan. Although the big shots felt uncomfortable, they could only remain silent. There was no other way. This old woman's temper had become terrible because the Dragon Whale clan's people had almost been wiped out. No one wanted to anger her at this moment. Buzz. Just then, the Life Soul altar in front of Tiansha Granny started to vibrate. However, no spirit was teleported back. She was stunned. Luckily, it was just a false alarm. Grandmother Tiansha comforted herself. The Dragon Whale clan had suffered too much. Almost all of them had been killed by Lin Sun. This made her so angry that she was about to go crazy. If even Yu Shaoxing, who was the only one left, had an accident, she would not be able to bear it. But a moment later, news came from other places. Not good. That young human demon god has appeared. He single-handedly killed a group of saints, and even Yu Shaoxing, the saint of the Dragon Whale clan, was killed. Not even his soul was left. Boom! Grandmother Tiansha felt like she had been struck by lightning. Even with her life and death realm mentality, she could not control her emotions. She suddenly let out a scream, her body shaking with anger. She could not help but cough out a mouthful of blood. Young human. She seemed to have gone crazy, causing the expressions of the powerful figures nearby to turn strange. They wanted to say, "It's only a few clansmen who died. Why do you have to go this far?" However, no one dared to do so. Grandmother Tiansha had clearly been provoked to the point of going crazy. If they tried to provoke her again, it would only bring trouble upon themselves. At the same time, those powerful figures were shocked inwardly. That young human had also gone to the Purple Cloud Divine Mountain. With his existence, the variables would be too great. Even Yu Shaoxing could not escape and was killed directly. The consequences would be too severe. When the news that even the saint of the Jade Scale clan was killed, and even his soul could not escape the calamity, the scene was thoroughly shaken. All the powerful figures were bewildered. Their faces were gloomy, and killing intent surged in their hearts. That young human was simply a scourge. Wherever he appeared, there would be a rain of blood. It was too hateful. This opportunity must not fall into the hands of this kid. Otherwise, those clansmen who are competing with him will suffer, some powerful figures mumbled with ashen faces. Elder Gaoyang was already having a headache. Why was it him again? Every time, he would incur the wrath of both humans and gods. Could it be that he was really a malefic star? Demon Saint Secret Realm, Purple Cloud Divine Mountain. Lin Sun and the others were bathed in blood as they advanced. Soon, they were close to the peak of the mountain. There was a battle here as well. A group of strong cultivators wanted to occupy this area. They were fighting fiercely with Xiao Ran, Yun Che, Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Gong Yangyu. The battle was extremely intense. It was obvious that it had been going on for a long time. Clang! Lin Sun waved his broken sword and rushed over. If he was alone, he would definitely watch from the side and not rescue them. However, he had Zhao Jingxian by his side. He just didn't want Zhao Jingxian to be caught in the middle. After all, she was the descendant of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. It was reasonable for her to stand on the side of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. Therefore, Lin Sun attacked without hesitation. This caused Zhao Jingxian to be slightly stunned, and then she understood Lin Sun's intentions. A wisp of a strange expression suffused her clear eyes while the corners of her plump and moist lips curled up imperceptibly, and a wisp of an indescribable feeling enshrouded her heart. Old Toad rolled its eyes and laughed, a wretched expression on its face. Heh, this guy is definitely a master of making a fortune in silence. Without saying anything, he used his actions to conquer the heart of a great beauty. Zhao Jingxian rolled her eyes and gave Old Toad a word. Get lost. Chapter 596. The top of the mountain was a platform of 100 meters. The ground was hard and flat, as if it had been flattened by a supreme force. The ground was filled with an ancient aura, and it was even branded with mysterious marks. At the center of the platform, there was a gray altar with a gloomy luster. At this moment, the battle broke out again. Xiao Ran and other descendants of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure were fighting against a group of extremely powerful practitioners. The light was rising, and the secret treasures collided. The situation was extremely fierce. Clang, clang, clang. Xiao Ran was wearing a blue robe, and his black hair was fluttering. He sat cross-legged on the ground and played the zither with his 10 fingers. The sound of the zither was sonorous and impassioned. It could be clearly seen that the invisible sound waves turned into sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, battle-axes, hooks, forks, and so on. They were vivid and flowing with illusory and ethereal Tao aura. This kind of attack was extremely unpredictable and mysterious, and its power was equally terrifying. It was able to pin down more than half of the enemies. In other words, Xiao Ran alone suppressed half of the enemies in the field. Moreover, looking at his indifferent and calm posture, it was obvious that he didn't expend much effort. Kill! On the other side, Yun Che held a blood sword in his hand. His killing intent soared to the sky, like a peerless sword demon, fierce and unparalleled. It was the grand Tao of slaughter, and it pressed forward with an indomitable will. The terrifying aura of slaughter raged through the surroundings, and it similarly caused one's heart to palpitate with fear, causing many experts to be unable to bear the brunt of it. Gong Yangyu's fighting method was relatively simple. He waved a purple rui, which shone with a dazzling light and poured down like a rain of light, giving off a dreamlike aura. Clang! Wen Xiang's figure was like that of a child, but he was extremely swift and fierce in the battle. He held a silver collar in his hand and constantly bombarded and killed his opponent. His movements were unparalleled and bold, full of valiant spirit. Su Xingfeng was like a king of fire. His eyes were burning like divine flames, and his figure was surrounded by surging flames. His Tao aura was raging, ostentatious and cold. As soon as Lin Sun joined the battle, he observed the fighting methods of Xiao Ran and other descendants of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure while fighting. Even he had to admit that the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure was indeed extremely terrifying. All of these disciples could be said to be blazing suns, and they possessed their own paths towards the Tao. Their resources and reserves were deep, and their combat strength was extraordinary. They were sufficient to compare with the chosens of the other races or even surpass them. It would be understandable if it was only a single person who was so powerful. But now it was a group of people who were so powerful. This was too unusual. However, the opponents that besieged them this time weren't simple. There were over 10 of them, and they were obviously the top and extraordinary figures of the various races. They attacked together with the intention of occupying this area, causing the battle to seem extremely intense, and it was utterly impossible to determine the victor in a short period of time. However, with the addition of Lin Sun, the situation of the battle suddenly changed, and those opponents were caught unprepared. Perhaps these enemies did not expect that the numinous treasure sacred land would have reinforcements. Furthermore, the reinforcements were an extremely savage young fiend celestial. Boom! As soon as the battle started, Lin Sun swept his broken sword and seriously injured an enemy in a short moment. At the same time, he firmly suppressed the other 3 nearby enemies. He was so powerful. The battlefield immediately became chaotic, and there was a burst of exclamations of shock and anger. The original balance was broken. Both the enemy could sense Lin Sun's strength. Xiao Ran was slightly startled, and then a smile appeared on his lips. He continued to play the zither, and the sound of the zither became more and more impassioned and sonorous, like an ancient war song, with earth-shattering killing intent. Gong Yangyu glanced at it and then withdrew his gaze. He was as proud and elegant as before. Yun Che snorted coldly, clearly dissatisfied with Lin Sun's interference. As for Wen Xiang, he just smiled and said nothing. The expressions of those enemies changed slightly. Not only did they sense Lin Sun's presence, but they also saw Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad not far away. This made them realize that the situation was not good. This series of subtle changes happened in the blink of an eye, and did not affect the continuation of the battle. On the contrary, with Lin Sun's participation, the fierce battle became more and more chaotic. Boom! Lin Sun did not care about this. He waved his broken sword, and the dazzling starlight turned into a waterfall of saber chi, crushing the void with unparalleled strength. In the blink of an eye, another enemy was sent flying by Lin Sun. His body was badly mutilated, and he screamed mournfully as he was seriously injured. Damn it! Who is this guy? It looks like that young demon god of the human race. What? How could it be him? Could the rumor be true? Is he also a descendant of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure? Damn it! Angry shouts rang out in the field. When they determined Lin Sun's identity, the expressions of those enemies couldn't help but change as they recalled many bloody rumors about Lin Sun. This made their hearts heavy, and they became increasingly aware of the severity of the situation and how bad it was. Seeing Lin Sun's current performance, Xiao Ran and the others couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. They seemed a little surprised, and there were also some subtle emotions that were hard to describe. At this time, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad joined the battle, and the situation immediately changed. They began to be disadvantageous to those enemies, putting them in a dangerous situation. Boom! When Lin Sun heavily defeated another opponent, suddenly, a dazzling flame swept over, and a terrifying aura of destruction enveloped Lin Sun. We don't need help at all. Who asked a retainer like you to attack? Cram. The one who attacked was actually Su Xingfeng. His expression was cold, and his voice was filled with disdain. Although he said that, the strength of this attack was not ordinary, and it was obvious that he wanted to kill Lin Sun. How could Lin Sun have expected that he would be rejected and attacked by Su Xingfeng when he came to help out of goodwill? Under such sudden circumstances, Lin Sun was caught unprepared. He used Ice Drake steps with all his strength, and only then was he able to narrowly avoid this attack. But even so, his shoulder was still grazed by a wisp of flame. His skin and flesh split open, and a part of it was charred black. This caused Lin Sun's expression to instantly sink, and killing intent surged in his black eyes. If it wasn't for the overall situation, he would have already disregarded everything and gone to kill Su Xingfeng. This guy actually suddenly attacked him in the middle of such an intense battle because he hated him. He simply deserved to die. Get lost. If you dare interfere again, I'll kill you first. Su Xingfeng shouted in an incomparably cold and aloof manner. It was as if he was berating a servant, and his words were filled with contempt and humiliation. F***ck your grandma. We came to rescue you out of goodwill, but you didn't appreciate it, and even dared to attack us. You're really a piece of **t. I've never seen such a despicable bastard like you. Old Toad was infuriated and shouted loudly. Senior Brother Su, what do you mean by this? Zhao Jingshuan's expression was cold, and her clear eyes were filled with sullen anger. Her voice seemed to be squeezed out from between her teeth. When she saw Lin Sun being attacked, she was also greatly surprised, and then an indescribable anger rose in her. This Su Xingfeng was obviously bullying people on purpose. This change made the situation even more delicate. The enemies were all surprised, but they couldn't help but secretly rejoice, wishing that they could kill each other. At the same time, they were a little confused. Retainer? That guy actually regarded that savage teenager as a retainer? My God! What the hell was going on? Junior brother Sue, don't be rude anymore. The most important thing now is to unite against the external forces and kill these opponents, instead of letting your emotions affect your decisions and causing internal strife. At the critical moment, Xiao Ran spoke. His voice was calm, but it had an inviolable majesty. Humph! Su Xingfeng snorted coldly, stared at Lin Sun coldly, and said no more. Lin Sun frowned, looked at the apologetic Xiao Ran in the distance, and then looked at Su Xingfeng. Finally, he took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the killing intent in his heart. If we really fall out later, you can do it. Even if I have to give up this opportunity, I will help you seek justice. Zhao Jingshuan's resolute voice came into his ears, which warmed Lin Sun's heart, and he nodded secretly. Kill. The battle didn't last long and ended hastily. The enemies had already sensed that something was wrong. They didn't dare to risk their lives and decisively chose to escape. Lin Sun didn't stop them, nor did he chase after them. Under normal circumstances, at least he could take this opportunity to kill some enemies at this time. Unfortunately, he was attacked by Su Xingfeng just now, and his heart was cold. How could he help them kill the enemies wholeheartedly? The enemies fled, leaving only the descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasures, Lin Sun and Old Toad. There were no more opponents. However, the atmosphere didn't become relaxed. Lin Sun's expression was calm but cold. He stood far away with Old Toad, not just because of Su Xingfeng. More importantly, there was an even more powerful assassin hidden in this group of people. Zhao Jingxian confronted Su Xingfeng and wanted to help Lin Sun get justice. Her beautiful face was full of coldness and anger. He's just a retainer. What's wrong with reprimanding him? Junior sister Zhao, are you going to fall out with me for a retainer? Su Xingfeng sneered. He clearly knew that Lin Sun's identity wasn't as simple as a retainer, but he still insisted on the word retainer. Obviously, he was humiliating and despising Lin Sun. Fall out? No, if you don't give me a satisfactory answer today, not only will I fall out with you, I don't mind fighting with you. Zhao Jingshuan's voice became even colder. Gong Yangyu, Wen Xiang, Yunche, and the others tried to calm the two of them down and take a step back. Unfortunately, neither Zhao Jingxian nor Su Xingfeng appreciated it. In the end, it was Lin Sun who came forward and persuaded Zhao Jingxian to calm down and endure for the time being. There would always be a chance to settle the score in the future. Lin Xian is right. A peerless fortuitous encounter is about to be born. Before that, we must work together and unite against the outside world. Only then will we be able to seize this fortuitous encounter from this brutal competition. I hope that everyone can temporarily put down your personal enmity and not cause any more trouble. Xiao Ren opened his mouth as well. His demeanor was transcendent and solemn. Look, those are our opponents. As he spoke, his gaze looked towards the distance. The peak of Violet Cloud Divine Mountain was divided into 54 different areas, and every single area was guarded by the top figures of the various clans and powers. All of them had come for the sake of seizing the fortune here. One could imagine how horrifying and bloody the competition would be when this fortuitous encounter was born. Chapter 597. If you can't wait, you can watch it tomorrow. Chapter 598. Xiao Ran's words silenced all of them. None of them were idiot. Naturally, they knew that in the current situation, they shouldn't kill each other. Otherwise, not only would they be laughed at by other clans and forces, they might even miss the opportunity to strike when the opportunity came. The sea of clouds on the mountain peaks surged, as if purple flames were burning. It was vast and boundless, and there was a type of divine aura that made one revere it. Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, and Old Toad gathered together and came to one side of the platform. As for Xiao Ran, Yun Che, and Gong Yangyu, they also gathered together and whispered to each other. That guy on fire is really a jerk. Old Toad was still very dissatisfied and kept muttering, not afraid that Su Xingfeng would hear it. Su Xingfeng's behavior is a little unusual, Lin Sun suddenly said. Lin Sun suddenly transmitted his voice. I saw him and Wen Xiang when we were chasing enemies in the mountain last time. At that time, he was not as rash and arrogant as he was just now. You suspect he did it on purpose? Zhao Jingxuan's clear eyes narrowed. I think so. When he attacked just now, he obviously wanted to kill me, and he didn't hold back at all. I suspect he was testing my strength, as if he wanted Xiao Ran and Gong Yangyu to see it on purpose. Lin Sun weighed his words carefully. Recalling the attack just now, he clearly felt that something was wrong. No matter how stupid Su Xingfeng was, he should have known that he had to deal with many enemies at that time. No matter how much he hated Lin Sun, he should have put the overall situation first. It was obvious that Su Xingfeng was not an idiot. On the contrary, for a heaven's favorite like him, his wisdom and shrewdness were far beyond the norm. But he had done so at that time, which seemed a little unusual. As the saying goes, there must be a reason for something unusual. Lin Sun vaguely guessed that perhaps Su Xingfeng had done so to let Xiao Ran and the others see his strength with their own eyes. If it's really as you guessed, then Su Xingfeng wants to rope in Xiao Ran or Gong Yangyu to deal with you together, Old Toad said in surprise. No, they must have secretly reached an agreement. The reason why they tested Lin Sun's strength was to make some preparations in advance so that they could find a chance to destroy Lin Sun in one fell swoop. Zhao Jingxuan's clear eyes glistened and surged with the glow of wisdom. She was from an imperial clan, so she was naturally rather familiar with the way of scheming and plotting, and this was her innate natural talent. Therefore, as soon as Lin Sun said his speculation, she instantly caught some conspiracy and made her own judgment. Anyway, they are going to deal with Lin Sun, right? Old Toad said angrily. Then what are we still doing here? Help them seize the opportunity, and then get rid of me after I'm no longer of use? Immediately after, he spat and hurriedly explained, this king is not a donkey. Don't misunderstand, this is just a metaphor. Lin Sun rolled his eyes. Even at a time like this, Old Toad was still talking nonsense. It was clearly so handsome and beautiful, but its nerves were really thick. We're not leaving. Zhao Jingxian took a deep breath, and her clear and beautiful face was covered in a composed expression. For the sake of seizing the fortuitous encounter, they'll definitely not make a move now, and it's even to the extent that they'll cooperate fully with us and rely on our strength to obtain the greatest benefits. After a pause, she continued, but if they want to make use of us, why can't we make use of them? After we seize the fortuitous encounter, we can be the first to attack. If they burn the bridge after crossing the river, we can naturally get rid of the donkey when it's no longer of use. Old Toad immediately grinned and gave her a thumbs up. Miss Zhao's speech is really good. Yes, if we want to kill a donkey, we have to kill these idiots with ulterior motives. Ayaya, this king is really looking forward to slaughtering these guys. Zhao Jingxian also couldn't help rolling her eyes. Such a serious matter, when it came out of Old Toad's mouth, just sounded like nonsense and gave her a headache. Lin Sun directly ignored Old Toad and looked at Zhao Jingxian, saying, You really intend to break off relations with them? This was a very important question. After all, no matter what, Zhao Jingxian was also the successor of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure. If she shed all pretense of cordiality with her own sect and confronted them, the consequences would be somewhat serious. Zhao Jingxian asked in reply, They're already sharpening their knives. Can we still stretch out our necks and throw away our lives? Looking at her clear and fair face and her calm and composed eyes, Lin Sun was finally sure that Zhao Jingxian had already made a choice. All right, then let's see who's the first to burn the bridge after crossing the river, and who's the first to get rid of the donkey when it's no longer of use. Lin Sun smiled slightly, his smile warm and brilliant. What an ugly smile, Old Toad commented. Lin Sun resisted the urge to kill and looked at the ancient altar not far away. Do you think there's a deeper meaning to the 49 altars on this mountain peak? Or is there some connection between their existence and the fortuitous encounter that's about to be born? As he spoke, he stepped forward to explore at a closer distance. Sure enough, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad were also attracted by it and moved closer. When I came here with senior brother Xiao Ran and the others last time, we already talked about it. This altar is clearly a building from the distant past. Apart from some Taoist marks and some mysterious and unfathomable ancient characters, there's no other clue on it. Zhao Jingxian explained. The altar was 9 feet high, gray all over, and there were still some moss on it, giving off a mottled air of vicissitudes. It looked ordinary, but when you perceived it carefully, you would find that an ordinary altar was surrounded by a trace of mysterious Taoist marks, which made it look sacred and solemn, making people palpitate. This altar is indeed the most ordinary one, but when it's stained with the breath of a saint, it becomes completely different. Old Toad's eyes glowed and widened, staring fanatically at every inch of the altar like a hungry wolf seeing a fat prey. If I'm right, this altar was built by a real saint himself. Only existences at such a level can turn something rotten into something magical. Even the most ordinary objects will carry the breath of a saint as long as they fall into their hands. Lin Sun was moved. He had also noticed the abnormality of the altar just now, but he couldn't describe it in detail. After listening to Old Toad's explanation, he suddenly had a feeling of enlightenment. Now I'm finally convinced that you're indeed a descendant of the 3-legged golden toad. Zhao Jingxian couldn't help being surprised and quite agreed with Old Toad's opinion. Humph, that's nothing. I know everything, and I'm much more knowledgeable than you. Old Toad suddenly became complacent with a proud face. Lin Sun couldn't stand this guy's arrogance and said, "Unfortunately, no matter how much you know, you've forgotten your previous memories. How pitiful." Old Toad stiffened and suddenly went crazy, clamoring to fight with Lin Sun. In the end, Lin Sun made a concession, which made Old Toad feel a little balanced. "Look, what are these words?" Zhao Jingxian pointed to the center of the altar, which was originally covered with moss, but someone had wiped away a large piece, revealing a line of twisted and strange mysterious words. The shape of the words was like a dragon, entrenched and holding its head high, with an indescribable majestic aura. "Among my fellow apprentices, senior brother Xiao Ran is the most proficient in ancient classics, but even he can't recognize this line of words. He can only judge by intuition that this line of words must be written by a saint and represents some kind of meaning." Zhao Jingxian explained. However, she suddenly found that Old Toad seemed to turn a deaf ear to her. He moved closer to the altar, his golden eyes overflowing with blazing light, firmly attracted by that line of mysterious words. At this moment, he seemed to be possessed, which was very unusual. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian looked at each other, their hearts shaking. They vaguely felt that Old Toad seemed to have seen some clues. While they were talking, Xiao Ran, Su Xingfeng, and the others also noticed the movement here. When they saw Old Toad's abnormal behavior, their eyes also narrowed slightly, with different expressions. These days, not only them, but also the experts in other altars on the mountain summit, were also comprehending and deciphering this kind of strange word. Because this kind of words were left on every altar, it was very unusual, and people had to pay attention and explore it. Unfortunately, until now, whether it was them or the other races, they were all confused, saying that they had never seen this kind of ancient words. And this result also made this Zixia holy mountain more and more mysterious. 49 mountain roads corresponded to 49 ancient altars. The altars had existed since ancient times, lingering with traces of the Great Way, and mysterious ancient words written by the saints themselves. What on earth did all this mean? Was it related to the peerless opportunity they had been waiting for? No one knew. It was also because of this that the status of this Zixia holy mountain became more and more mysterious in everyone's heart. Now, when they saw Old Toad's expression seemed a little abnormal when he was studying these words, how could Xiao Ran and the others not be surprised? Who is that fellow practitioner? Why haven't I heard of him before? Xiao Ran asked aloud. The others shook their heads, including Su Xingfeng and Wen Xiang, who had never seen Old Toad, let alone know his origin. I remember that when we entered the Demon Saint's secret realm, Lin Sun was alone, right? If so, is the green-robed young man beside him an aborigine of this Demon Saint's secret realm? Xiao Ran pondered and deduced. This shocked the others, and they finally began to pay attention to the stranger Old Toad. It's impossible. The intelligent creatures in the Demon Saint's secret realm all have the terrible strength of the life and death realm. Other fierce beasts are strong, but they can't be so psychic. Su Xingfeng shook his head. Anyway, if he can decipher that kind of secret text, he can help us a lot. Xiao Ran said thoughtfully. At this moment, Old Toad in the distance, like a fool talking in his sleep, was murmuring and forgot to transmit his voice. His voice leaked out and immediately attracted the attention of Xiao Ran and the others. Square. Mountain. Hoax? It was a staccato sentence, but it shook everyone's hearts. Old Toad had actually recognized this mysterious text. Chapter 599. Fangtsuan Mountain, a scam? What did this mean? Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, and Xiao Ran were all confused. But when they wanted to continue listening, they saw that Old Toad had already withdrawn his gaze with a blank face. Fangtsuan Mountain, such a familiar name, why can't I remember it at all? Only then did they realize that the meaning of the mysterious text on the altar was just these few words. But what on earth did it mean? No one knew. Old Toad, what do you see? Lin Sun asked. This is a mysterious Sanskrit from the ancient times. Rumor has it that it was created by Buddhist cultivators. Unlike ordinary Sanskrit, this Sanskrit is the most mysterious. Even ordinary Buddhist cultivators can't master it. Only those with profound cultivation and true Buddhahood can comprehend and write it. Old Toad also became alert at this moment. He didn't reveal anything but transmitted his voice. This Buddhist text is also called Mahayana secret text. Even in ancient times it was rarely circulated. No wonder it's so mysterious. Turns out to be an esoteric secret text created by Buddhism. Zhao Jingxian was shocked. Does this mean that the fortune in Violet Cloud Divine Mountain has something to do with a Tao immortal from the ancient times? Lin Sun was also a little surprised. Buddhist practitioner was an extremely strange existence to him. When he was in the Forbidden City, he only knew that there was a Yueluan kingdom thousands of miles away from Xiao Empire, where Buddhist doctrine was flourishing and there were many monks. Not long after Lin Sun entered the Forbidden City, there was a young monk named Enian who went to Green Deer School alone to challenge young Sword King Shai Yutong, but the result was a draw. Even so, being able to fight with young Sword King without being defeated still made the young monk Enian famous and resounded throughout the Forbidden City. Lin Sun had also heard of it, but he didn't care about it. So he knew almost nothing about Buddhist practitioners. It was also when Lin Sun came to the Soul Oblivion Sea and entered the Tao Burial Sea. He accidentally met a blind monk when he was fighting against the army of vengeful spirit. It was a Buddha filled with strange colors. His eye sockets were empty, and he sat cross-legged on a black skull. He wore a blood-stained kasaya and held mottled white bone prayer beads in his hand. There was a demonic black lotus pattern on his head. This was a Buddhist practitioner Lin Sun had seen, but he seemed too weird and horrible. Now, when he heard that the line of ancient Sanskrit on the altar turned out to be a Mahayana secret text of Buddhist cultivation, Lin was naturally moved and his imagination ran wild. I'm not sure. It's just a line of mysterious Mahayana text without any concrete clues. On the surface, this place is related to Buddhist cultivators. Old Toad wasn't sure either. Try to think again. See if you can remember anything about Mount Hart. Lin Sun could not help asking. Old Toad shook its head right away. If you can't remember, then don't think about it. Even if you know, it's all from ancient times and has nothing to do with you. What does it mean to have a Tao immortal? Zhao Jingxian suddenly asked. Having a Tao immortal makes one a saint. This is a Buddhist cultivator's understanding of the Great Way. That is to say, among Buddhist cultivators, as long as one has a Tao immortal, there's no doubt that he's a holy monk. Old Toad explained casually. Holy monk? This title was a little special. Lin Sun couldn't help thinking of the strange blind monk he had seen before. Had he also been a holy monk? Junior sister Zhao, what are you talking about? Why don't you say it so we can study it together? Suddenly, when Xiang in the distance opened his mouth with a smile, Lin Sun turned his head and saw that Xiao Ran, Su Xingfeng and Yun Che had also been paying attention to them. None of your business. Old Toad looked impatient. He didn't have a good impression of these descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasures, so he spoke bluntly. When Xiang's expression froze and he immediately became angry. You still want to compete with us for the opportunity? Not only do you not know how to be grateful after taking advantage of us, but you're also so arrogant. Do you want to be our enemy? Old Toad pointed at Wen Xiang in disdain and said arrogantly, Shut up, little brat. How can you interrupt when adults are talking? You, Wen Xiang shot to his feet, his eyes full of killing intent. All right, don't argue any more. Xiao Ran spoke up, his voice still flat and dignified. Seeing this, Zhao Jingxian hesitated, but Lin Sun seemed to have guessed what she was thinking and spoke first. He said with a smile, There's nothing to hide. This line of ancient characters was left behind by a Buddhist cultivator. It's a rare Sanskrit called the secret script of Mahayana. Buddhist cultivator. The secret script of Mahayana. As soon as he said this, Xiao Ran and the others were shocked. Are there any other clues? Xiao Ran said in a low voice. It was impossible to draw any conclusions based on these clues alone. Lin Sun shook his head. Lin Xian, we're on the same side now. Please don't hold anything back. If you delay everyone's chance to fight for the opportunity, can you at least bear the consequences? Su Xingfeng's voice was cold and harsh. He clearly thought that Lin Sun was holding something back and deliberately hiding something. Haha, kid, see? If you don't tell them, they'll think you're hiding something. If you tell them, they'll suspect you're holding something back. In short, you're in a bad situation. The old toad gloated. Lin Sun shrugged and ignored him. In fact, he was a little angry. Did Su Xingfeng really think of him as a retainer? Lin Xian doesn't hold anything back. Believe it or not. Zhao Jingxian was a little angry. Originally, Lin Sun didn't need to explain. The reason why he did this was because he didn't want to put her in a difficult position. Now, Lin Sun had already said it, but Su Xingfeng still doubted Lin Sun's intentions. This was too much. Xiao Ran let out a smile. He was about to say something when a sacred ripple suddenly spread out from the peak of the mountain. The aura was vast and boundless, shocking the world. It made the sea of clouds boil and roll violently. Is the opportunity about to appear? Quick, get ready. At this moment, in the area where the 49 altars were located, the powerhouses of all clans were alarmed. They all stood up and looked excited. Was this fortuitous encounter finally going to appear? Xiao Ran and the others' eyes were shining. They all stood up and waited. The peak of the mountain was vast. At this moment, the 49 ancient altars seemed as if they'd awakened from the silence of countless years, and they emanated an obscure holy fluctuation as they started to glow. In an instant, the entire violet ray divine mountain started to shake while a dense holy aura flowed, and it was dignified and vast to the extreme. The layer of clouds in the sky seemed as if they were unable to endure it, and they collapsed and dispersed. In an area of 500 kilometers in the surroundings, the beasts howled and howled while shivering, and the rocks and plants rustled as if they were bowing their heads in submission. At the foot of the mountain, numerous experts of all clans were still fighting intensely for the sake of seizing the path to the peak of the mountain. But when they noticed this unexpected event, their expressions changed abruptly, and they stopped what they were doing and looked towards the peak of the mountain in unison. Is this unprecedented, fortuitous encounter about to descend? After that, they became even more frenzied. Blood flowed ceaselessly, and they wished for nothing more than to charge up the peak of the mountain right away, causing the battles at the foot of the mountain to become more and more horrifying and horrifying. Bang! On the peak of the mountain, the weather changed, the holy aura rose, and the 49 ancient altars glowed while being suffused with an obscure aura. Everything indicated that a shocking change was about to occur. The experts of all clans who had occupied different areas were all tense, their mouths were dry, and their eyes were full of fanaticism and expectation. After waiting for so many days, this great fortuitous encounter was finally about to descend. Even if the great figures and old monsters of the outside world were here, it would be difficult for them to calm down, right? Boy, the arrival of the fortuitous encounter also means that the real killing tribulation is about to begin. Do you remember what I said before? There are 50 great ways and 49 heavenly evolutions. This place is a situation where only a slim chance of survival is left. Don't be blinded by the fortuitous encounter, or you're bound to suffer a calamity. At this moment, the old toad was unexpectedly nervous and reminded Lin Sun to be vigilant and careful. Lin Sun nodded secretly. Witnessing this shocking change in front of him, besides being excited, he was actually a little vigilant. There was no need to think too much. Once the fortuitous encounter appeared, the experts of all clans present would inevitably swarm up to fight for it. It was bound to be a bloody and cruel scene. This was just a competition. When they really went to seize the fortuitous encounter, who could be sure that they wouldn't encounter the peerless killing tribulation buried here? Suddenly, a speck of light suddenly appeared in the sky at the very center of the peak of the mountain, and it gradually grew brighter. In the end, it was actually like a blazing sun that emitted an extremely dazzling glow, and it illuminated the world and caused the world to dim in comparison. What's this? Many experts exclaimed and didn't dare to look at it. Whatever it is, let's seize it first. There were also some experts who didn't intend to wait at all and directly took action to seize the opportunity and be the first to eat crabs. It was an expert of the Golden Phoenix clan. He turned into a golden phoenix with wings covering the sky and moved as fast as lightning, rushing over in an instant. However, a horrifying scene appeared. He hadn't even had the chance to approach Qin-Shi when his figure was actually drowned by the boundless light, and he was soundlessly incinerated into nothingness. From the beginning until the end, he didn't even have the chance to let out a shrill cry. This was a top figure, but he died for no reason. The most terrible thing was that his bone talisman of life spirit didn't have time to save him. All the experts present gasped one after another. The excitement and fanaticism in their hearts faded a lot, as if a basin of cold water had been poured on them. Only then did they realize that this was a great fortuitous encounter, but also a great killing tribulation. They had to be careful. At this moment, the bright light in the center of the void began to change and condensed into a dreamlike lotus. The lotus was not big, only the size of a bowl. It seemed to be cast by the purest glass in the world, flowing with a sacred and vast aura and shining brilliantly. It bloomed in the void like a lotus lamp. Although it was only the size of a bowl, it illuminated the world, the mountains and rivers, and everything. Light and holiness were everywhere at this moment. Chapter 600. A lotus bloomed like a lamp, illuminating the world. The sacred scene caused all the experts here to be shocked, and their expressions changed as they felt an indescribable impact. Like a miracle, it appeared in the world at this moment, shocking the world. Vaguely, a fragrance filled the air. The fragrance was ethereal and quiet, like the pure aura of a saint that could wash away all filth. At the same time, wisps of Zen chants came out of the lotus. At first, they were faint and inaudible, but later, they gradually became grand and boundless. It was as if 3,000 Buddhas were chanting sutras together. The sound was close to Tao, resounding through the universe and shaking the soul. Many powerhouses couldn't help but be tempted again. That lotus was too sacred, as if it didn't belong to the world. If they could get their hands on it, it would be an unprecedented good fortune. It seems that all this is indeed related to the Buddhist sages of ancient times. Chen Linxuan murmured. The lotus was like a lamp, bright and sacred. The fragrance of Zen enshrouded the world, and the sound of Sanskrit resounded between heaven and earth. Everything seemed grand and brilliant. Be careful, you must be careful. Old Toad became more and more nervous at the moment. Seeming to notice something, he reminded. In ancient times, among the sages, the Buddhist sages were the most difficult to deal with. These guys had Tao immortal, comprehended karma, deduced Mahayana holy method, and their state of mind was the most tenacious and profound. To put it bluntly, they were like a group of paranoid people. Whatever they believed in, they would do everything they could to put it into practice. No one could change their will. Was this tantamount to attacking the Buddhist sages? Lin Sun couldn't help being shocked by Old Toad's astonishing words. This guy seemed to have a prejudice against Buddhist sages. Don't doubt me. If this opportunity is related to Buddhist sages, it definitely won't be so easy to obtain. These bald donkeys pay the most attention to fate, which is also the most troublesome thing. Old Toad murmured, You'll understand when this fortuitous encounter is completely revealed. In the middle of the void on the mountain peak, the bowl-sized lotus became more and more holy and translucent. It swayed and swayed, flowing with light that could illuminate the world. Buddhist incense drifted through the air while the sound of chanting resounded, and it caused this expanse of the heavens and the earth to fall into a solemn and divine atmosphere. At the foot of the mountain, all the experts who were fighting fiercely were stunned. They stopped what they were doing, and all of them seemed to have comprehended something. They stopped fighting and stood there as a smear of devotion appeared on their faces. At the summit of the mountain, it was the same. All the experts of the various races felt their minds go blank, as if a mighty force was attacking their minds. It was as if it wanted to enlighten them. Be careful. This is the Buddhist sect's power of overcoming adversity. It's also a terrifying guiding power. Once the mind is eroded, it's over for the rest of your life. Damn it! Could this opportunity really be related to the Buddhist sect? Didn't this kind of orthodoxy lose its legacy in ancient times? There were also some peerless figures who sensed that something was wrong. Their expressions changed abruptly, and they shouted out in succession to warn the experts beside them. Interesting. Xiao Rant's whole body was surrounded by a transcendent aura, untainted by even a speck of dust. Obviously, he wasn't affected. On the contrary, he seemed to be meditating on this power that belonged to the Buddhist sect. Yun Che, Su Xingfeng, Gong Yangyu, and the others all looked solemn. They abandoned all distracting thoughts and concentrated their spirit and qi, no longer being affected. Lin Sun directly ran the meditating magic. In his sea of consciousness, the stars were bright, the moon was in the sky, and all kinds of Dharma forms appeared, dispelling the fluctuations in his mind in an instant. It's terrible. I almost suffered a disaster unknowingly. Lin Sun was shocked. He finally realized that Old Toad's words seemed to be right. This opportunity seemed sacred and solemn, but in fact, it was full of unpredictable variables and dangers. He looked at Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad and found that they had already resisted and resolved it, so he immediately felt relieved. Swoosh! As time went by, the lotus suddenly bloomed and divided into 49 lotus petals. Each lotus petal was gushing out divine rainbow light, gorgeous and holy in color, indescribably magnificent and spectacular. At the same time, on the 49 altars, a door emerged in the void, lingering with the aura of the divine Tao. Outside the door, it was connected with the divine rainbows and led to the 49 petals of the blooming lotus. From a distance, it was like the altar was a door, and the divine rainbows were an arch bridge. The end of the bridge led to the heart of the lotus. The altar is the door, and the petals are the paths, leading to the heart of the lotus? Could it be that this fortuitous encounter is hidden within the lotus heart? Some strong people speculated, their eyes flashing. At this moment, a grand voice resounded between heaven and earth. A grain of sand contains 1,000 worlds, a body and mind are the same, 10,000 reincarnations pass in an instant, and the opportunity is only given to the predestined one. This was like a Buddhist hymn, but it was not obscure. On the contrary, almost everyone could understand it. Especially when they heard the sentence, "The opportunity is only given to the predestined one," all the people present were shocked. All the strong people breathed rapidly, their eyes were blazing, and they were eager to fight. The opportunity finally appeared. At some point, the divine fluctuation between heaven and earth finally fell into silence. The incense and the sound of Sanskrit were gone, and only the 49 ancient altars stood there. On the altar, the door was guarded, and a divine rainbow connected the door and the lotus in the center, just like a path leading to the place of opportunity. The lotus was obviously only the size of a bowl, but at this moment, all signs were on the surface, and the opportunity was hidden in the lotus, which stunned many strong people. But there was no time to think at this moment, because some strong people had made a move. Boom! In an area far away from the top of the mountain, an extremely majestic figure appeared. His whole body was flowing with dark light, and he was full of terrifying and violent power. His eyes emitted a cold light like a sword, and his beard and hair were like halberds. He had a peerless and overbearing manner, and he strode forward to the door of the altar. Young Bull Demon King Nyo Tunshin, this holy son from the Herculean Bull Demon clan, a top talent with extraordinary talent and combat strength, was the first to take action at this moment. Since entering the secret land of demon saints, Lin Sun was not the only one who dominated the scene. In different places, there were also peerless figures who rose and made a name for themselves through battles and killings. Nyo Tunshin was the most famous one. He had fought and killed along the way, snatching food from the mouth of tigers several times, and snatching countless opportunities. Just the number of strong people who died in his hands was no less than 100. Swish! Almost at the same time as Nyo Tunshin moved, in another area, a beautiful figure covered in brilliant golden light also stepped out and stepped onto the altar. Her figure was blazing, and the golden light was falling like a rain, making it difficult for people to see her face clearly. But everyone immediately recognized that it was Menglianqing, the holy girl of the Golden Phoenix clan. She had once challenged the Holy Sun-level figures of 3 different races by herself, finally defeating them in one fell swoop. Her cultivation could also be said to be outstanding, and she was the best in a region. Not only Nyo Tunshin and Menglianqing, but also some peerless figures at this moment, such as Xiao Kong of the Cloud Dragon clan, Xian Luozi of the Xian Ao clan, and so on. During this period, these peerless figures had been fighting in the secret land of demon saints, and had made brilliant achievements and prestige. They were like the sun at high noon, shining brightly, and not comparable to ordinary holy suns. At this moment, they almost acted at the same time. Obviously, they wanted to fight for this big opportunity as soon as possible. Let's go. Xiao Ran also set out, followed by Su Xingfeng and others. However, when Lin Sun was about to take action, he was stopped by Old Toad's voice. Opportunities are only given to the predestined ones. Do you remember what I said just now? Buddhist monks are most particular about fate. The first to act may not necessarily be the one to obtain the greatest benefit. Lin Sun was stunned. You mean we should wait a little longer? I can see through the secret text of Mahayana. There are such secret texts left on these 49 altars. It's not too late to take action after comprehending them one by one. Old Toad's voice was stealthy, full of excitement. I have a hunch that the words left on the altar are absolutely not simple. Do you want to have a try? Lin Sun was also tempted, but he was a little hesitant. Why don't you go? On the altar, Su Xingfeng frowned and asked. You go first. I'm a little worried about the danger. Let's wait a little longer. Lin Sun gave an explanation casually. Will people like you also feel afraid? Su Xingfeng's lips curled up in disdain. Well, let's go first. Xiao Ran looked back at Lin Sun deeply, and without saying anything more, he walked towards the altar door first. You have to hurry up. Don't delay the opportunity to seize the opportunity because you act too late. At that time, there's no medicine for regret. Su Xingfeng snorted coldly and followed Xiao Ran with others. What are you doing? Zhao Jingxian couldn't help asking. After Lin Sun explained a little, Zhao Jingxian suddenly understood. After thinking for a while, a touch of determination flashed in her clear eyes, and she also chose to stay. At this moment, on the top of the mountain, the top figures of all clans had started to take action. They stepped into the door above the altar and rushed along the divine rainbow towards the sacred lotus in the center of the void. However, when they stepped foot onto the divine ray of light, everything changed. It was like the movement of the stars and the passage of time. Their figures were shrinking, and in the end, when they approached the lotus, they'd already become specks of dust that were practically impossible to see. Some strong people who still stayed on the mountain couldn't help but gasp. Sumeru in a mustard seed. This is the legendary supreme magic, which derives the power of void and time. A leaf and a flower can carry a world and make everything different. Someone exclaimed. However, this didn't frighten the crowd. On the contrary, it made them rush to the door more and more. At this moment, they finally understood that although the lotus in the center of the void was only the size of a bowl, in fact, everything there had become completely different. Like Sumeru in a mustard seed, there hid a vast land of opportunities. The reason why the figures of the strong people who rushed over before became smaller was not that it really happened, but that the space they were in had a magical change. Such supreme ability was probably only possessed by figures of the Saint Tao. Chapter 601. While Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, and Old Toad were taking action, a terrifying aura suddenly emerged in the area not far from Zixia Divine Mountain. It was a golden-winged rock, with wings that seemed to be made of gold and flowing with terrifying Taoist light. It looked like a king with a pair of sharp golden eyes, looking at the mountains in the distance. My God! Is that the rock of ancient times? At the foot of the mountain, many powerhouses exclaimed. Boom! The golden-winged rock opened its mouth, and an unparalleled force swept out, instantly sweeping away dozens of powerhouses and swallowing them into its belly. Crack! Crack! The golden-winged rock chewed slowly, blood dripping from the corner of its mouth. It was cold and indifferent, as if it was eating an appetizer. This scene was too shocking, and it caused the souls of the other experts to almost leave their bodies. They emitted sharp cries of terror as they fled madly towards Violet Cloud Divine Mountain. Clatter! Suddenly, the sky was covered by a shadow, and a mountain-like serpent head appeared. Its blood-red eyes were like a pair of lakes, and its tongue was like a bloody waterfall. In an instant, more than a dozen powerhouses were swallowed by the serpent's mouth, and they didn't even have time to struggle. However, when the giant serpent was about to approach Zixia Divine Mountain, it was blocked and suppressed by a sacred force, which shocked it. It let out a soft hiss and retreated. Peerless serpent! Its body was like a winding mountain, covered with cyan scales, as if standing between heaven and earth, overlooking all living beings. Its aura was extremely terrifying. Damn it! What kind of monster is this? Why is its aura more terrifying than that of a life-death realm king? Run, go up the mountain. The remaining powerhouses at the foot of the mountain didn't care about fighting anymore. They all rushed to the top of the mountain like crazy. The scene was chaotic. The golden-winged rock was indifferent. Its wings were folded, and it stood proudly in the void in the distance, looking proud and cold. But when it looked at Xixia Divine Mountain in the distance, there was a faint trace of unspeakable fear and a trace of unconcealable desire in its eyes. On the other side, Peerless Serpent raised its head and flicked its scarlet tongue. It was also closely watching the movement on Xixia Divine Mountain. Originally, they should have been mortal enemies, but at this moment, they seemed to have put down their enmity, minded their own business, and set their sights on Violet Cloud Divine Mountain. Not long after, a butterfly the size of a cattail leaf fan appeared out of thin air. Its wings were colorful and flowing with 5-colored halos. As soon as it arrived, it only glanced at the golden rock and Peerless Serpent before choosing another area and silently gazing at the distant Violet Cloud Divine Mountain. In terms of aura, it was not weaker than the other two. Whoosh! A ball of green light suddenly appeared from another area. It was a green fox with soft and smooth fur like silk. It was incomparably spirited. It strode through the sky with a gaze that was deep and aged, and it seemed as if it possessed intelligence. Its gaze swept past the other 3 terrifying existences before finally stopping and looking at the distant Violet Cloud Divine Mountain. The 4 terrifying beings that resided in different areas of the sacred beast realm appeared at the same time and looked at Xixia Divine Mountain as if they were waiting for something. That scene seemed to be extremely shocking. Fortunately, Violet Cloud Divine Mountain was covered in terrifying restrictions, and a divine aura was everywhere. Even though the Golden Rock and Peerless Serpent were extremely strong, they were greatly suppressed the closer they got to this place, and they were unable to approach it. Otherwise, it would absolutely be a calamity for the experts of the various races. Rumble! It wasn't long before another centipede appeared. Its body was only around 3 m long, and it seemed to be condensed from jade. It emanated a ferocious and terrifying aura. It seemed to be very violent. As soon as it appeared, it charged towards Violet Cloud Divine Mountain while brilliant jade light surged around its body, and its might was peerlessly terrifying. It intended to charge through Violet Cloud Divine Mountain by force. This scene caused the eyes of the Golden Rock, Peerless Serpent, the butterfly, and the green fox to focus. But in next to no time, their expressions returned to calm and indifferent. Because the jade centipede hadn't even approached Violet Cloud Divine Mountain when it was suppressed by a divine aura, causing the centipede's entire body to collapse, and it let out a shrill cry as its body was almost crushed. Fortunately, it reacted quickly and dodged with all its might, thus avoiding the calamity. However, when it looked at Violet Cloud Divine Mountain again, its eyes were filled with fear and unwillingness. But in the end, it endured and waited in the distance, watching silently. Outside the ultimate ruin, the opportunity of the Divine Mountain has arrived. It seems to be related to the legendary Buddhist saint. When this news spread, everyone was in an uproar. The important figures of the various races were in high spirits and complacent. Especially the Herculean Bull Demonic Clan, Golden Phoenix Clan, Cloud Monkey Clan, and Xian Ao Clan, who had seized the initiative and were the first to fight for the opportunity. They cheered. The greatest opportunity had finally arrived, causing those great figures to be filled with longing. They wished that they could also enter the secret realm and explore it. Unfortunately, they could only dream about it. But not long after the excitement and joy, bad news came. Monsters! Many monsters have appeared near Violet Cloud Divine Mountain. There's the Golden Rock, a mysterious giant serpent, and a 5-colored butterfly the size of a cattail leaf fan. Many of our clansmen didn't have time to escape and were eaten by them. They're even more terrifying than life and death kings. Oh my God, How could there be so many terrifying existences in that damn place all of a sudden? On the Life Soul altar, the divine souls of the various races repeatedly flashed. They were all experts who had luckily escaped with the help of the Life Soul Bone spell after being killed. Through their narration, the important figures present felt a chill in their hearts. Their faces were extremely gloomy as they realized the seriousness of the problem. These terrifying beings have obviously come for the fortune within Violet Cloud Divine Mountain. They can't enter, so they're waiting outside. This also means that no matter which race's disciples obtain the opportunity and want to leave, they will be killed by them. Some important figures made a judgment and gnashed their teeth in hatred. To be able to attract so many terrifying creatures, this opportunity is definitely not simple. What's hateful is that we can only wait outside and can't enter to help. There were also some important figures who were distressed and their faces were livid with anger. Who would have thought that before they could obtain the opportunity, they would attract a group of terrifying creatures? Things are not simple. Since those terrifying creatures can't enter Violet Cloud Divine Mountain, it means that there's still a chance to escape. A big shot analyzed the situation and seemed rather calm. If they dare to kill my clansmen, I will kill them all one day. Suddenly, a thunderous roar sounded. It was Nyoxiori, the Bull Demon King of the Herculean Bull Demon clan. His voice was impassioned, murderous, and domineering. But that was all they could do. After all, they were in the outside world and couldn't enter. No matter how angry they were, they could only stare and hope that something good would happen. On the mountaintop. Scam? Just these two words? F***ck his grandma. Why is it another useless message? How can those bald donkeys do this? They're clearly making trouble. Old Toad cursed, looking a little exasperated. He took Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian to explore other altars. Because there were no opponents, they soon explored 9 altars. As Old Toad expected, there were cryptic and strange Mahayana scripts on each altar, but the contents were disappointing. They were all similar to the scam of Mind Mountain, and there was no specific discovery. Old Toad was also dumbfounded and annoyed. He had thought he could find some mysteries and guidance from these altars, but it was all a bunch of nonsense. If they found nothing in the end, they would suffer a great loss this time. Not only would they miss the opportunity to seize the opportunity, but they would also waste a lot of time. Let's go to other places. Lin Sun looked a little gloomy. He was a little annoyed that he should have listened to Old Toad's slanderous words, but since he had already started, he wouldn't be satisfied if he didn't explore all the other altars. Yes. Let's go to other places. We'll definitely find something. Old Toad was also a little embarrassed. He didn't have the face to face Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian. Hearing Lin Sun say so, he quickly found an excuse. They've been watching us all the time. Zhao Jingxian felt a little uncomfortable. She pointed to the area in the distance where the golden-winged roc and other terrifying creatures were entrenched. Earlier, they'd noticed this sort of situation, and they were extremely shocked. They realized that these ferocious beings were definitely drawn over by this fortuitous encounter. But when they determined that they couldn't get close to this sacred mountain, Lin Sun and the others didn't bother to pay attention to them. Ignore them. They're a bunch of useless trash. They can't even enter this mountain. They deserve to stare at us and envy us. Old Toad appeared very arrogant. He said the golden-winged roc and the others were a bunch of trash, which made Lin Sun want to slap the back of his head. If those creatures that were scarier than Life-Death Realm Kings were trash, then weren't they even worse than trash? Hurry up! Lin Sun glared at Old Toad. Old Toad also knew that this operation was a little disappointing, so he didn't bicker with Lin Sun and hurried on with the operation. Mind Mountain is where the heart is. It turns out that Mind Mountain doesn't exist at all? I didn't expect him to deceive all of us. Mind Mountain really doesn't exist. Next, Old Toad explored the secret texts of Mahayana on the altars one after another. Almost all of them had similar content. This made his face even more unsightly. He kept cursing the Buddhist sages along the way, thinking that this group of bald donkeys was too much of a bully. They didn't leave any clues but some nonsense, which was simply to fool people on purpose. Even Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were speechless. What kind of existence was Mind Mountain? Why were these Buddhist sages so obsessed with it? Finally, when they were exploring the 30th altar, Old Toad was refreshed. He finally made a new discovery. According to the common language of the world, Mind Mountain is where the heart is. Crescent moon and 3 stars is just like a stroke, and when written, it is another heart character. It is said that the secret of Bodhi is hidden here. Could it be that to see Mind Mountain, one must explore the way of heart? When Old Toad translated the line of Mahayana text on the altar, Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were both stunned, keenly aware of the key point. The secret of Bodhi. It turned out that the so-called Mind Mountain and the land of Crescent Moon and 3 stars hid the secret of Bodhi. Chapter 602. Why do I feel things are getting more and more complicated? Old Toad was stunned. Lin and Zhao Jingxian also had the same feeling. Before entering the secret realm of demons, they thought there was an inheritance of an ancient demon saint here. But after many days of exploration, they found that this secret realm of demons should be a place for saints to preach Taoism, which was opened up by a group of saints under the leadership of a king of divine Tao. The purpose was to leave good fortune for their respective descendants, hoping that when these descendants were born, they could transcend the past and create new legends on the road of Tao. But when they arrived at Zixia Holy Mountain, after some exploration, they found that this place seemed to be related to ancient Buddhist sages. The most surprising thing was that these 49 altars were all left with inexplicable words such as Mind Mountain, Deception, Crescent and 3 stars, etc., which gave them a headache. This place is too mysterious and unknown. Before we came here, we all thought it was too simple. Zhao Jingxian sighed softly. The secret realm of demons, the place for saints to preach Taoism. Zixia Holy Mountain, related to Buddhist sages. Everything here is really incredible and full of mysteries. Lin Sun felt the same way. I can be sure that this secret realm must be the place for saints to preach Taoism. Old Toad thought for a long time and made a judgment. As for this Zixia Holy Mountain, it's just a place left by one of the sages, and this sage was a powerful Buddhist practitioner in ancient times. Who is this so-called demon saint? Lin Sun asked. Maybe it's just a rumor. Maybe this demon saint was originally a Buddhist practitioner. Old Toad made an inference. Lin Sun was stunned. A demon saint among Buddhist practitioners? This explanation was rather novel, and it made sense when one thought about it carefully. Zhao Jingxian suddenly pointed out something strange. No, the Mahayana script on these 49 sacrificial altars is definitely not the work of a single person. It's very simple. All of you should know that this demonic saint secret zone has been passed down since the ancient times, and countless years have passed since then. Throughout these years, there must have been many extraordinary geniuses that have come here to search for it. Old Toad's thoughts gradually became clear, and his golden eyes were shining. However, if there were many experts who came before, why would they leave such strange words on the altar? Zhao Jingxian asked. At this time, Lin Sun suddenly narrowed his eyes and said, I have an idea. In our opinion, this is a Zixia Holy Mountain, hiding a rare opportunity. However, in the past, the experts who once came to this place perhaps regarded this mountain as the Heart Mountain, and tried to find the so-called secret of Bodhi from it. Yes. Old Toad said admiringly, just like this king, this so-called Zixia Divine Mountain might have been regarded by those Buddhist cultivators as Fangtzuan Mountain in the past, and they believed that the secret of Bodhi was hidden inside. But in the end, they found nothing, so they thought it was a scam and that the so-called Fangtzuan Mountain and the secret of Bodhi didn't exist at all. As soon as these words came out, Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian finally understood a little. However, when they thought about it carefully, there were still many loopholes. Then tell me, is this really Fangtsuan Mountain? Or, as the secret text of Mahayana on the altar said, all this is just a scam? Zhao Jingxian couldn't help asking. The messages on the altar are all secret texts of Mahayana, which are rare in ancient Sanskrit, and only Buddhist cultivators can master them. Doesn't this mean that many Buddhist cultivators have come to this mountain to explore over the years? Lin Sun also opened his mouth and looked at Old Toad. If so, who can be sure that the opportunity hidden in this Zixia holy mountain is really related to an ancient Buddhist cultivator? Old Toad was stunned. Looking at Zhao Jingxian and then at Lin Sun, he seemed to be a little angry and scolded. We're here to seize the opportunity, not to explore some bullshit left behind from ancient times. Why do we care about Fangtsuan Mountain? It seems that you don't know either. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were both suspicious. Old Toad said grumpily, although I claim to know all the treasures of all things, I never said that I know all the secrets of ancient and modern times. Let's go, don't just stand there. Time is precious. Let's go to the next altar. With that, Old Toad slipped away, obviously afraid that Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian would ask some more questions that he couldn't answer. They explored the altars one by one, but there were no more valuable clues. Just as they were feeling disappointed, Old Toad's eyes suddenly widened and he rushed forward excitedly, his face almost touching the altar. He said excitedly, "There are real secrets on this altar. It's completely different from the other altars." Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were immediately attracted by it. Ever-changing, not leaving the sect is ma, and a pa, me, hum. Old Toad said each word with a pause, not because he was too excited, but because the secret text of Mahayana was so obscure and complicated that he could only recognize it word by word. Ever-changing, not leaving the sect is ma, and a hum. Lin Sun repeated it and said perplexedly, "What does this mean?" He just felt that the last 6 words were too obscure and awkward, with a strange rhythm. It was just 6 words, but they seemed to contain countless profound meanings. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a strand of mysterious fluctuation suddenly arose in the nearby space, and then a door that was coiled by the glow of the Tao actually floated up into appearance. Moreover, a divine rainbow spurted out from the center of the lotus in the distance, like an arch bridge, and connected to the door. Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad were all shocked by this miraculous scene. Sure enough, they had found some mystery and answer from the altar. It must be the power contained in that sentence that triggered some kind of restriction and made this door appear. Old Toad was in high spirits and beamed with joy. The Great Way is 50, and the Heaven's Evolution is 49. The number of altars corresponds to it, and the one that has never appeared has now been discovered by us. This door is the escaped one. The more he said, the more excited Old Toad became, and he almost danced with joy. Isn't it said that only the fated ones stay in the creation? Right now, it's as if we've encountered a hidden law of fate. Let's go. It's time for us to show our skills and seize all the fated chances. As Old Toad spoke, he leaped into the door, and Lin Sun had no time to stop him. Well, let's hurry up. Zhao Jingxian said with a smile, "I think Old Toad is right. This is the most suitable way for us." Lin Sun shrugged. "That's the only way." The two of them immediately set out as well. They stepped through the mysterious door, and stepped onto the divine ray of light, and it was as if they were striding through the passage of time. In the twinkling of an eye, their figures kept shrinking and disappeared into the lotus in the center. After they disappeared, the door and the divine rainbow also disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened at all. The top of the mountain was sacred and rosy, and a lotus was in full bloom in the center of the void, flowing with light and illuminating the world. On the 49 altars, the door was still there, and the 49 divine rainbows were connected to the lotus in the center. When the first group of strong people of all races crossed the door and disappeared into the land of fated chances transformed by the lotus, many more strong people set foot on the top of the mountain in succession and rushed into the door. These strong people had been fighting at the foot of the mountain, but because of the appearance of the golden-winged roc and other horrible creatures, they fled in panic and came to the top of the mountain to take refuge. They didn't expect that the door leading to the land of fortune was still there, so they didn't even think about it and rushed in as well. Perhaps they had lost the first opportunity, but if they couldn't eat the meat, they could always get some soup to drink, right? It was with this idea that they also started to take action. Here it is. Later, a man and a woman with a group of strong people appeared in front of the altar where Lin and the others had left. The beautiful woman, holding an ancient scroll that looked like jade, stared at the Mahayana script on the altar and compared it. The man was a little nervous and expectant. If Lin Sun was here, he would definitely recognize that the man and the woman were Yao Susu and Lian Fei. It's indeed here. The secret map left by my father is correct. It didn't take long for Yao Susu to cheer up. So, the pagoda in my father's hand and this secret map were spread out from here? Lian Fei was also excited. Of course. Back then, my father came to the sinkhole by chance. He didn't even enter the demonic sage mystic realm, but he unexpectedly obtained the pagoda and the mystic map. That was truly a great opportunity. He obtained it effortlessly, unlike us, who have to risk all sorts of dangers to search for it. Yao Susu was a little emotional and a little sad. It's a pity that my father has been in trouble and my Yao family has been destroyed. Susu, don't be sad. When we get the great fortune, we will return to the empire and avenge our father and the others. Lian Fei quickly comforted her. I've heard that it was Lin Sun and Blood King Ning Bugue who killed my father and the others. Sooner or later, I will kill them myself. I will sacrifice their blood to the Yao family. Yao Susu took a deep breath and stopped thinking about it. She compared the secret map in her hand and began to identify the secret text on the altar word by word. It's always changing, but it doesn't leave the sect. That's why Mimi. Yao Susu's voice was strange and obscure. But in just a moment, there was a fluctuation in the void and a portal appeared. At the same time, a divine rainbow rushed from the distant lotus. The magical changes were exactly the same as Lin Sun and the others. Sure enough, the real fortune is here. Ha ha ha, the other fools only know how to seize the opportunity. How can they know that the real fortune can't be obtained by brute force? Lian Fei laughed excitedly. At this moment, the top of the mountain was empty. Except for them, there was no one else, which made Lian Fei dare to ridicule them so unscrupulously. Stop talking nonsense. Let's go, or there will be changes if we delay. Suddenly, a gloomy voice resounded, and it came from the group of experts behind Lian Fei. Lian Fei's eyes turned cold and he seemed to be a little angry, but he finally restrained himself. These strong men were all from the Water Barbarian branch. This time, he and Yao Susu could enter the secret land of Demon Saint thanks to the help of a big shot from the Water Barbarian branch. However, the attitude of these experts caused Lian Fei to feel disgusted and disgusted. They treated them like insects and didn't even show the most basic respect. Brother Fei, let's go first. When we enter the place of opportunity and seize the fortune, we will take the opportunity to kill these guys to vent our anger. Yao Susu's voice was also filled with hatred. Chapter 603. This was a corridor, with lamps hanging on the stone walls on both sides, sprinkling a soft halo. The flickering lights seemed to have illuminated the path of Tao for countless years, eternal and inextinguishable, with a sense of tranquility and silence. Is this the place of opportunity derived from that lotus? As soon as they arrived here, Old Toad couldn't help but be surprised. He looked back and forth, and even wanted to break off a lamp to study it carefully. However, it seemed that because of fear and caution, he hesitated for a while and finally didn't put it into practice. He just stared at those lamps and observed them carefully. After a long time, he said disappointedly, "It turns out to be the most common jiao oil lamp. No wonder it can burn from ancient times to the present. Be careful, this place is a little too quiet." Lin soon glanced around with a trace of inexplicable tension in his heart, as if there was some danger hidden in the depths of the corridor. He held the broken blade in his hand. Zhao Jingxian also took out the 9-dragon cauldron, which sprinkled auspicious light around her to protect her. They walked along the passageway, moving forward. The atmosphere was deathly silent, without the slightest sound. The passageway was deep and serene, and the lamps that burned brightly flowed with a gentle luster. It wasn't gloomy, but this deathly silent atmosphere caused one to shudder with fear. Before long, a misty glow appeared in the distant corridor, like a fairy light rain, which was very eye-catching. "This is?" Lin Sun and others were shocked. They saw clearly that there was a figure sitting cross-legged in the place where the glow was falling. He was extremely old, dressed in a Taoist robe, and his snow-white hair was scattered to the ground. The misty light rain was diffused from this figure. At this time, the figure was facing Lin Sun and others, with a pair of silver pupils, like the silver sun, exuding a terrible breath. Lin Sun and others were stiff all over, and their hearts beat violently. There was a kind of uncontrollable palpitation in their souls, which almost collapsed. "Oh no!" Old Toad suddenly screamed, and a hilt appeared in his hand, releasing a round and clear black halo in front of him to resist the breath of the figure. In an instant, all the abnormalities disappeared, leaving Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian with lingering fear. Just now, the breath of the figure almost killed them. "Damn it, this is actually the corpse of a saint." Old Toad was shocked to discover that although the figure's eyes were clear, it was actually just a corpse that had lost all signs of life, and had been dead for who knew how many years. This was even more horrifying. Just how powerful was this saint? Even after death, he still maintained his complete form and was extremely lifelike. Moreover, the aura that emanated from his corpse was enough to easily kill all of them. This was simply inconceivable. If this sage was still alive, how terrifying would he be? This old fellow was definitely an extraordinary existence, but he died here for no reason, and there isn't a trace of injury on his body. This is rather strange. The old toad muttered to itself as its pair of golden eyes scanned the saint's corpse. As he spoke, he held the hilt of the saber in his hand and released a round and translucent black light. He didn't dare to relax at all. "This is a sage?" Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were both shocked. Kings of the life and death realm were already terrifying enough for them to look up to. But sages were even more transcendent than kings of the life and death realm. The sage realm was a transcendent realm that could only be reached after going through the 9 longevity tribulations. It was said that one could live as long as heaven and earth. Now, the corpse of such an ancient sage appeared in front of them and was seen with their own eyes. That kind of shock was so great that no one could remain calm. "This Taoist robe seems to be made of star soul silver threads." Old Toad's eyes shone and it breathed heavily. "Oh my God, that's a big deal. 1 star soul silver thread is enough to crush a mountain and is heavier than a star. This old guy actually used this level of treasure to refine a Taoist robe." The old toad almost drooled and its eyes turned red. Star soul Taoist robe. This was a saint-level treasure. The old toad couldn't stand it anymore. Gritting its teeth, it activated the hilt of the saber and tried to peel off the clothes on the corpse. But in just an instant, it let out a blood-curdling scream as it was sent flying by a terrifying force. It coughed up blood and looked miserable. If it weren't for the miraculous black light produced by the hilt of the saber in its hand that helped it neutralize most of the force, it would have died just like that. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were horrified. The corpse of this sage was too powerful. Even though it had been dead for countless years, it was still incomparably majestic, like a god that transcended the world and could suppress all invasions. Damn, the rumor is actually true. Saints can't be blasphemed. This is the rule of the Great Way. Unless you have the same level of strength, you can't take this treasure away at all. The old toad got up from the ground, its face full of frustration and unwillingness. A Taoist robe made of star soul silver threads. But it couldn't take it away. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian looked at each other. This old toad was too greedy. It almost lost its life just now, but it didn't care at all. Instead, it was upset that it couldn't take that treasure away. What a weirdo. Old toad, the hilt in your hand is not bad, Lin Sun suddenly said, his eyes fixed on the old toad's hand. Lin Sun had seen this hilt the first time he met the old toad. It was pitch black and old, with a layer of blood-stained cloth wrapped around its surface. It looked like an old blood-stained object, which wasn't unusual at all. But it could block the aura of the sage's corpse, which made it stand out from the crowd. Immediately, old toad became vigilant and shouted, "Don't get any strange ideas. This treasure is this king's lifeblood, and has been by this king's side ever since this king woke up. If you dare have any ill intentions, this king promises to fight you to the death. Can you let me see it?" "No." The old toad flatly refused, leaving no room for discussion. Lin Sun said, "Oh," and stopped probing. He could see that this thing was of vital importance to the old toad. "Let's go quickly. It's the most torturous torture in the world to see the star-soul Taoist robe without being able to take it away." The old toad was distressed. They avoided the sage's corpse and continued to move forward. The tunnel was dark. Not long after they moved forward, they found another corpse. It was an indigo lion, as big as an ox. Its fur was as green as silk, and it was also filled with the aura of the sage Tao. There was no doubt that this indigo lion was also a horrible creature that had stepped into the sage Tao in ancient times. Rui. Peerless holy treasure. The old toad's eyes turned red again when he found that the indigo lion was holding a white Rui jade in its mouth, which was flowing with the aura of the sage Tao. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to try it again. When he left, his heart was bleeding, and he beat his chest and stamped his feet. Along the way, they found the corpses of sages from time to time, one after another. They were all intact and didn't show any signs of injury. It was as if they had passed away in meditation. This made Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxuan's scalp numb, and their hearts were in turmoil. How could so many sages die here in ancient times? What was the origin of this tunnel? The old toad wailed all the way, and his face turned green. He looked resentful because he found one treasure after another, all of which came from the hands of sages, but he couldn't take them away. This made him, who regarded wealth as his life, almost go crazy. "If it weren't for the hilt in the old toad's hand, we probably wouldn't have been able to come here and would have died long ago." Lin Sun was aware of a serious problem, and his heart was filled with lingering fear. He had thought that this time, after cracking the secret of the altar and finding a path that represented the one of escape, it was enough to find a lucky chance. Who would have thought that this place of lucky chance would be a tunnel with the corpses of many sages? It seemed too dangerous and unpredictable. This isn't a dead end, is it? Even sages died in it. Will we also repeat the same mistake? Zhao Jingxuan's pretty face was solemn. "Bah! Don't jinx it," the old toad scolded. "The more dangerous the place is, the more unimaginable the lucky chance is. These sages died here, but it doesn't mean that we can't leave here alive. And I'm sure that the lucky chance must still exist here and hasn't been taken away." Lin Sun didn't believe the old toad's inference. He turned his head and looked back, but was surprised to find that the path they had come from had disappeared. It was indeed gone. It was dark there. Not to mention the path, even the corpses of the sages they had seen along the way were gone. "We can't go back." Lin Sun's voice was bitter and his heart was beating fast. This place seemed to be free of danger, but it was too mysterious and ominous. Unforeseen events had happened silently. Zhao Jingxuan's face changed slightly. She was also shocked and horrified by this scene. Since there's no way back, just keep going forward. The old toad gritted its teeth, and its face was full of ruthlessness. The Great Way is 50, and Heaven's evolution is 49. We're walking on the only unknown way, and it's also the only way to survive. There must be a way out. That's the only way. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed the palpitation in his heart. As they moved on, Lin Sun began to observe carefully. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the road behind them to fall into darkness. It felt like an invisible giant hand had silently erased the road behind them. It was unspeakably mysterious. The only good thing was that they hadn't encountered any danger so far. Of course, if it hadn't been for the mysterious saber hilt in the old toad's hand, just the corpses of the sages alone would have been enough to make it difficult for them to move an inch. Because the aura of those corpses was so strong and terrifying that it made people wonder if they could suppress and kill everything. How terrifying must such figures have been when they were alive? They had been dead for so long, but the aura they left behind was still so frightening. It was really ridiculously strong. There's a door. Suddenly, the old toad cried out in pleasant surprise, realizing that they had reached the end of the tunnel. There was indeed a tightly shut stone door here. The stone door was arched, overflowing with an ancient aura, and it was suffused with an ancient aura that assaulted the face. And in front of the stone door was the corpse of a sage. It was a monk in white. He sat cross-legged on one side of the stone door, his back bent as he looked down at the ground, his right index finger touching the ground. On the ground, he had carved a sentence with his fingertip. Chapter 604. Fate comes, but fate ends here. The time isn't right, and there's nothing we can do. The handwriting was ancient and strange. It was the Mahayana secret script of Buddhist cultivators. There was no doubt that the monk in white was a Buddhist cultivator. However, he also died and seemed to have passed away here. Before he died, he left this line of words, which revealed a sense of desolation, helplessness, and grief which moved people. I have an idea. Old Toad suddenly opened his mouth, staring at the closed stone gate not far away. In ancient times, many sages came here to search for opportunities, and like us, they also arrived at this stone gate. Unfortunately, because the time wasn't right, they couldn't open the stone gate, so they finally died here with grievances. Sages are said to live as long as heaven and earth, but they aren't really immortal. They were trapped here, and no one was willing to leave. They hoped that one day the gate would open, but unfortunately, the time wasn't right, and there was nothing they could do. In the end, Old Toad sighed and said that this was fate. If it wasn't yours, you couldn't get it even if you waited for a long time. What exactly is hidden in this door? Why would a group of sages rather stay here and wait until their lifespans run out and they die than leave? Zhao Jingxian stared at the closed stone gate with her clear eyes. The sage realm. What a supreme and terrifying existence it was. But because of the opportunity behind this stone gate, they died one by one while waiting bitterly. This was probably the cruelest thing in the world. How mysterious was that fortuitous encounter? Why was it that the sages were so obsessed with it that they would rather wait for it to pass away than leave? Maybe they were really unwilling to leave and waited here for a long time, but there's also a possibility that they had no way out and could only wait here. As Lin Sun spoke, he looked behind him. There was darkness there, and the way they came seemed to have been erased and disappeared. This startled Zhao Jingxian, and then she was horrified. Then we don't talk. Someone is coming. Quickly hide your breath, sit cross-legged on the ground, and pretend to be a corpse. Old Toad suddenly transmitted his voice to remind her quickly. As he spoke, he sat down by the white-clothed monk's side, and he used the hilt of the blade in his hand to resist and disperse the aura on the latter's body, causing him to seem dull and unmoving like a clay statue. Seeing this, Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian didn't dare to neglect. They immediately sat on one side of the tunnel, one holding the broken sword in front of him and the other holding the 9 dragons cauldron. If one did not look closely, it would be difficult to notice the difference between them and the corpses of the saint. Pretending to be a corpse was also a kind of helplessness. The tunnel was no more than 2 feet wide, and there was a tightly shut stone door in front of him. There was no place to hide, so he could only take the risk. Who was it that discovered this passageway? Lin Sun and the others were a little surprised, but they were also a little solemn and vigilant. They were ready to fight. Not long after, the sound of footsteps came from the darkness behind the tunnel. Accompanied by the sound of footsteps, lamps lit up one after another. The glow was gentle, and a group of people appeared. They were led by a man and a woman. The man was handsome, but he looked a little nervous. The woman was beautiful, holding a jade-like scroll in her hand. The scroll was obviously also a rare treasure. It was enshrouded in clear light, like a dream, and fell down to protect them and the strong behind them. It's them. Lin Sun was shocked. His divine soul was so powerful that he instantly recognized that the man and the woman were Lian Fei and Yao Susu. But Lin Sun didn't expect to see them in the secret realm of demons. Moreover, they'd even found the most mysterious passageway, and it seemed to be too inconceivable. Before they got close, Lin Sun lowered his head and quickly transmitted his voice to Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad, briefly telling them the identity of Lian Fei and Yao Susu. He also reminded them to bear with it for the time being and not to take action without permission. The strong people of Water Barbarian Branch. It didn't take long for Lin Sun to notice that the strong people behind Lian Fei and Yao Susu were all from Water Barbarian Branch. Although they looked no different from human beings, their breaths were very easy to recognize. When Lin Sun was in the bloodthirsty camp, he killed many descendants of Water Barbarian Branch, so he couldn't be wrong. It seems that they came here by cooperating with Water Barbarian Branch. Lin Sun understood a little. He had just noticed that both Lian Fei and Yao Susu were just at Sea Spirit Realm, and they had not yet stepped into Tao Insight Realm. If it weren't for the escort of those water barbarians, they would have been killed as soon as they entered the secret realm of demons, and they wouldn't have been able to enter the bloody and cruel Zixia Holy Mountain. So many sages have died. Susu, could it be that? Lian Fei's face turned pale, and her voice trembled. Don't say such ominous words. You also see that there is no way back now. We can only move forward. Yao Susu scolded in a low voice and said, Don't worry too much. With the secret map left by my father, we can definitely find the rare opportunity hidden in it. I hope so. Lian Fei was still frightened and worried about gains and losses. Indeed, this place was too terrible. There were sages' corpses all along the way. No one could keep calm. Speaking of which, the secret map that father left behind is indeed marvelous. Not only did it help us find this extremely hidden passageway, but it can also resist and dissolve the aura on the corpses of those saints. It's definitely a rare treasure. Lian Fei seemed to feel that she was a little embarrassed and said with a smile, Maybe with this treasure we can really escape. It's not escape, it's finding the opportunity. Yao Susu corrected her. Yes, we can definitely find the opportunity. Lian Fei nodded quickly. There is a stone gate ahead. At this moment, Yao Susu's eyes lit up, and she stepped forward quickly. Have we reached the end? Lian Fei and other water barbarians hurriedly followed. When they passed by Lin Sun and others, they didn't notice them at all. Obviously, they had subconsciously regarded them as the sages' corpses. After all, no one would be able to imagine that someone would actually arrive here in such a hidden passageway. The most important thing was that there were sages' corpses all over the way. If there was no secret treasure to protect them, it would be difficult to move forward even if they had great fighting power. Because of this subconscious cognition, Yao Susu and others were directly attracted by the stone gate at the end of the tunnel and didn't notice the difference here. Fate comes, but fate ends here. It's not the right time. What can we do? To everyone's surprise, Yao Susu held the mysterious scroll in her hand and compared it word by word. She recognized the Mahayana script left by the white-robed monk. Old Toad, it seems that they can come here with the secret map. When we fight, I will deal with those water barbarians, and you and Miss Zhao will get the secret map together. Lin Sun didn't worry about being heard by others at all. Soon, both Old Toad and Zhao Jingxian agreed. The so-called opportunity must be in this door. At this moment, Yao Susu and others didn't notice that the danger was not far from them. They all looked excited and stared at the closed stone gate. What are you waiting for? Go and open the stone gate. A water barbarian powerhouse urged them. Why don't you go? Lian Fei was very dissatisfied and scolded him unhappily. How dare you talk back? If we didn't protect you all along the way, you weak human beings would have died long ago. How could you come here? The water barbarian's face was gloomy, full of disdain and contempt. I told you to go. If you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame us for being rude. I believe that without you, as long as we have the secret map, we can also find this opportunity. As soon as these words came out, Lian Fei's face suddenly changed with fear. Enough. Yao Susu's face darkened. She glanced at those water barbarians coldly and said, Don't go too far. Without my cooperation, you are doomed to not get this opportunity. The water barbarian was furious, but he finally restrained himself and said, We were a little anxious just now. Don't get me wrong. Yao Susu snorted coldly and said no more. She walked forward to the closed stone gate and began to look at it carefully. Do you want to take action? Old Toad suddenly asked. Wait a little longer. It's good to let them take the lead, Lin Sun replied quickly. Buzz. At this moment, Yao Susu suddenly raised the scroll in her hand and a clear light rain drifted towards the closed stone gate. Immediately, the stone gate, which had not been opened for many years, actually made a roar at this moment and slowly opened from silence. All of a sudden, Yao Susu, Lian Fei and those water barbarians all breathed heavily and looked excited and happy to the extreme. For countless years, many sages had been waiting here bitterly, but they didn't see the day when the stone gate was opened even when they died. But now, the stone gate was opened so easily. Did this mean that the so-called opportunity had come? On the ground, the white-robed monk's words, It's not the right time. What can we do? Were still vivid in their minds, looking sad and helpless. At the end of countless years, the stone gate was opened at this moment. Comparing the two, it really made people sigh with emotion. The so-called opportunity also needed to pay attention to timing. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Yao Susu, Lian Fei and others all rushed into the stone gate. Why didn't you take action just now? Old Toad stood up from the ground, feeling distressed. Let them explore the way, and we will reap the benefits. Lin Sun's black eyes were calm. Even if they seize the opportunity, they are not our opponents at all. Hey, you are so bad. How can you say such a shady business in such a righteous way? Don't you feel ashamed? Old Toad was immediately amused. What he liked most was to do the shady business. This is really an opportunity sent by the heavens. If we barged in forcefully just now, we definitely wouldn't have been able to open this stone door. Who would have thought that the heavens would immediately send these guys over? This is equivalent to helping us solve a huge problem. Old Toad became more and more excited as he said, This is the profound blessing. Only our three-legged golden toad clan has such a unique luck. I think you are the most shameless toad. Lin Sun squinted at Old Toad, then took a deep breath, restrained his breath and walked into the stone gate quietly. Old Toad and Zhao Jingxian hurriedly followed him. Stepping into the stone gate, there was actually another world inside. It was like walking into a Taoist temple, simple and unadorned, as if no one had been here for many years, and the ground was piled up with a thick layer of fallen dust. The temple was extremely large, divided into 33 floors, and each floor was connected by 9 steps. Such a magnificent hall, layer by layer, made people in a trance as if they had arrived at the dwelling place of a god, with a shocking solemn atmosphere. However, the strange thing was that the hall was actually completely empty. There weren't even any decorations, and it seemed to be empty and cold. Yao Susu and the others moved forward quickly, going up the stone steps to the deepest part of the hall. Before long, they arrived at the end of the hall, and then saw a scene that made them dumbfounded. At the end of the hall, there was a solitary praying mat. Was the so-called place of chance actually a futon? In ancient times, a group of sages came here to explore, but they had no chance to enter the stone gate and could only die in bitter waiting. Who could have imagined that the fortune they sought wholeheartedly was actually a spacious and cold hall and a meditation cushion? It was like a big joke. Perhaps it was really a scam? In the distance, Lin Sun and the others, who were hiding, couldn't calm down at the moment. They couldn't imagine that there was such a scene inside the stone gate. They thought of the altars they had seen on the top of the mountain and the lines of Mahayana script left on the altars. The Mountain of Heart, a scam? I didn't expect that he had deceived all of us. According to the common language in the world, the Mountain of Heart is the place where the heart is. Crescent moon and 3 stars is just like a stroke, and when written, it is the word heart. It is said that the secret of Bodhi is hidden in it. Can it be that, if we want to see the Mountain of Heart, we must explore it with the way of heart? When recalling this sentence, the old toad suddenly thought of something and transmitted his voice. If you want to see the Mountain of Heart, you must explore it with the way of heart. And there is another saying that no matter how one changes, one never leaves the root. Perhaps the fortuitous encounter in this place will only appear if I use some sort of method to resolve it. It should be so. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were in a daze, and they also understood it. When they looked at the empty hall again, it seemed a little different. The hall was divided into 33 layers. Did it represent the legendary 33 levels of heaven? Each area was connected by 9 layers of stone step. Did it also imply that 9 was the extreme number, and stepping on one layer was equivalent to crossing one level of heaven? Was the owner of the cushion the Almighty Being who had personally created this land of opportunity? Or, the secret of Bodhi was hidden in this hall, but they hadn't found it yet? When they were thinking, suddenly, a strong water barbarian took action and grabbed the futon on the ground. Obviously, in his view, there must be something strange about this futon, and maybe it hid some peerless secret. If you want to get the chance, how can you be fierce? You are rude and unreasonable, and you have no fate with me. Almost at the same time, an ethereal and silent voice suddenly sounded in the hall. No one knew where it came from. But when the voice sounded, the strong water barbarian who took action suddenly became stiff. With a bang, his body turned into ashes and scattered on the ground. From beginning to end, he had no time to react. There was a sound of gasping in the field. This hall was really strange, and there was an invisible, peerless, killing intent. Boy, do you see the thick layer of dust on the ground? I suspect that those are the ashes of the strong people who have entered this place before after triggering the killing intent. The old toad was frightened and transmitted his speculation to Lin Sun. This made Lin Sun and Zhao Jingshuan's blood freeze. If what the old toad said was true, the thick layer of dust on the ground was equal to the ashes of the strong people who had fallen here one after another. Don't act rashly. In the distance, Yao Susu warned with a dignified look. She stepped forward and carefully stared at the futon on the ground while comparing it with the mysterious scroll in her hand. Lian Fei and the others were nervous and ready to fight. All of a sudden, Yao Susu took a deep breath and yelled word by word, "You can change into anything, but you can't leave the sect." "That's right, ma. Buzz." These words were like a key that triggered the restrictions that were hidden here, and then the meditation cushion suddenly emanated a wisp of light that instantly illuminated the entire hall. Chapter 605. It was only a Buddhist hymn, but it seemed to possess some sort of mysterious force that caused the meditation cushion at the end of the hall to undergo a change and emit a wisp of Tao light. The light was ethereal and divine, and it illuminated the entire hall with a light sweep. After that, the originally empty hall seemed to have been unveiled in everyone's field of vision, and it revealed its true appearance. Some ancient engravings appeared on the walls, and they seemed to have been carved by the power of time, causing them to be filled with vicissitudes of life. Those engravings were very mysterious. There were ancient people, the sun, moon, mountains, rivers, deer, cranes, and many strange creatures that had never been seen before. Within the palace that was divided into 33 areas, every wall had a mysterious engraving, and even after countless years had passed, they still emitted a terrifying aura of the grand Tao. At the end of the hall, the meditation cushion glowed and suddenly transformed into a rain of light that condensed into a meter-tall platform. The platform was glittering and swaying with the light of treasures. There were numerous scriptures, copper bells, wooden fish, horsetail whisks. They were densely packed and dazzling, and all of them were overflowing with light and radiated a dazzling divine brilliance. This is the great fortune hidden here. My God! There are so many treasures. We're rich now. Saint Tao treasures left behind from the ancient times? There are mysterious scriptures and miraculous treasures. Yao Susu, Lian Fei, and the others were stiff on the spot. Their breathing was rapid and heavy, their eyes were red, and their expressions were filled with blazing excitement. Not to mention them, even the great figures from outside the ultimate ruins would probably be shocked and overjoyed if they were here. How shall we divide these treasures? Lian Fei spoke with a trembling voice and swallowed with difficulty. Her gaze seemed to be stuck to the meter-tall platform, and it didn't move away from the beginning. All of you can choose any treasure, and the rest belong to us. Suddenly, a water barbarian spoke gloomily, and it instantly caused the atmosphere to become tense. Impossible! If it wasn't for me and Susu, how could all of you have found the fortune here? Lian Fei's face sank and she was almost mad with rage. They'd finally found a peerless fortune with great difficulty, yet they could only obtain one of the treasures. No one would agree to this. You've gone too far. Yao Susu's face darkened. According to the agreement, if we find a chance, we'll split the treasures in half. Do you want to break the agreement? So what if I break the contract? The water barbarian laughed and his voice was filled with murderous intent. How dare an ant-like human talk about conditions with us? Other water barbarians also sneered and looked at Yao Susu and Lian Fei with unkind eyes. Are you going to burn the bridge after crossing the river? Are you going to kill us and take this fortune for yourself? Lian Fei's face was ashen as she realized that something was wrong. That will depend on whether you will cooperate obediently. The water barbarian said expressionlessly. If you kill us, even if you can obtain all of this, you will definitely not be able to leave this place. Don't forget, there are still a pile of saint corpses watching you in the tunnel. If I don't have the secret map in my hand, which one of you can leave? Yao Susu took a deep breath and said coldly, and you should know that only I can use the power of this secret map. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of those water barbarians suddenly flickered and they were a little hesitant. At this time, suddenly a burst of laughter came out. Dog bites dog, a mouthful of hair. This is really a wonderful show. Unfortunately, there is not enough time. Otherwise, I really want to see how you kill each other. In the distance, Old Toad in a green robe swaggered out. Who are you? Whether it was Lian Fei, Yao Susu, or those water barbarians, they were all shocked. They did not expect that there would be someone sneaking into this mysterious hall. This made their faces change, and they became vigilant, with murderous intent lingering in their hearts. Humph, based on your identity, you are not qualified to know my identity. Old Toad looked arrogant and unruly, squinting at all of them with a pair of golden eyes, and said carelessly, "Now, I will give you a chance to choose. One is that you kill yourselves, and the other is that I will kill you myself." "How dare you? Where did this arrogant boy come from? How dare you be so rampant?" Those water barbarians were furious. Old Toad's appearance was so arrogant and domineering that they couldn't control their emotions. They were so angry that their noses were almost crooked. And they had all noticed that Old Toad's breath was not very strong, so it was not a threat to them. "Kill this madman for me." Immediately, several water barbarians rushed out and besieged Old Toad with murderous intent. As soon as they started, they used all their strength. Swish! However, just as they took action, a bright saber radiance suddenly swept out from one side of the void. It was just like a reversed Milky Way. With a puff, in an instant, a water barbarian had no time to dodge and was covered by the saber radiance. His head was separated and he died on the spot. "No, this madman has a helper. Damn it!" Several other water barbarians who rushed out were shocked and angry, and their faces all changed. At this time, Lin Sun's figure appeared in the field. With ice drake steps and a broken sword in his hand, he killed those water barbarians like a ghost with an incomparably fierce momentum. Rumble the battle broke out, breaking the solemn and quiet atmosphere of the palace. These water barbarians could survive in the secret realm of demons until now, so they were by no means weak. Unfortunately, they met Lin Sun, a genius who couldn't be measured by common sense. In just a moment, several water barbarians who rushed forward to deal with Old Toad were killed on the spot and fell in a pool of blood. This scene made Lian Fei, Yao Susu, and the rest of the water barbarians in the distance feel cold, and their faces changed greatly. That young man was too formidable, and he'd easily killed a few of their companions. That bloody and ferocious scene was horrifying and caused their scalps to go numb. "Lin Sun!" Suddenly, Lian Fei shouted with a face full of disbelief. Her eyes almost popped out. She couldn't imagine how she could meet her enemy Lin Sun here. It was so ridiculous. How could it be him? Yao Susu was also taken aback, as if she had seen a ghost. Not to mention the two of them, Lin Sun also had a feeling that he had never thought of this when he found out the identity of Lian Fei and Yao Susu. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. When they confirmed Lin Sun's identity, the old and new hatred in Lian Fei's and Yao Susu's hearts surged. Their faces became extremely livid, and they stared at Lin Sun as if they wanted to eat him alive. "You two, long time no see." But Lin Sun just smiled and said hello to him. "It's been a long time indeed." Lian Fei and Yao Susu both gnashed their teeth with hatred. From the moment Lian Fei learned that Lin Sun was the person who killed his father, his life changed, and revenge became his only support. Helplessly, since Lin Sun entered the Forbidden City, his rising momentum was unstoppable. He became more and more powerful, which almost made Lian Fei desperate. In particular, when he learned that the whole Yao family was killed because of dealing with Lin Sun, Lian Fei was even more frightened and helpless. This time, he and Yao Susu came to the secret land of monsters to explore the opportunities because they wanted to become stronger and find Lin Sun for revenge. Who would have thought that when they found this opportunity, Lin Sun, their enemy, actually appeared in front of them like this? The most infuriating thing was that the other party had a carefree appearance and was even greeting them like a friend. This made the two of them hate him so much that they almost couldn't control themselves. "Boy, you've greeted them. It's time to send them to hell, right?" Old Toad said anxiously. His pair of golden eyes stared at the treasures on the platform with covetous eyes. He couldn't wait any longer. "Okay." Lin Sun nodded. "Kill." Those water barbarians also realized the seriousness of the situation. They knew that if they didn't kill Lin Sun and Old Toad first, it would be difficult to save their lives, not to mention snatching those opportunities. Therefore, before Lin Sun took action, they rushed up together, exerting all their skills to besiege and kill Lin Sun and Old Toad. Clang! The broken sword rang. Lin Sun didn't want to talk nonsense. His figure flashed and the prelude to the battle began. At the end of the hall, Lian Fei and Yao Susu's faces changed. In the end, they actually refrained from attacking Lin Sun, their enemy. Instead, they rushed to the platform behind them at the same time. Obviously, they wanted to take this opportunity to plunder all the treasures on the platform. Buzz! But before they got close, a golden nine-dragon cauldron appeared in the void and blocked them. It overflowed with vigorous and terrible divine light, which shocked them and made them stagger back. At the same time, Zhao Jingshuan's slender and graceful figure also appeared. She was clear and beautiful, with her clothes fluttering, and the nine-dragon cauldron above her head flowing with divine light. She was peerless and beautiful. She had a helper. All of a sudden, Lian Fei and Yao Susu's hearts sank. Realizing that the situation was not good, they were angry and unwilling. The fortune was clearly right before their eyes and within easy reach, yet an unforeseen event just had to occur at this critical moment, and this almost drove them mad. How could this be? Boom! Zhao Jingxian didn't have the time to guess their feelings. As soon as she appeared, she controlled the nine-dragon cauldron to suppress Lian Fei and Yao Susu. In her opinion, these two people were only at the sea spirit realm, and it was impossible for them to resist her attack. But to Zhao Jingshuan's surprise, Yao Susu resisted all her attacks with the illusory light released by the mysterious scroll in her hand. It seems that Old Toad is right. They can arrive here safely and discover the secret of this place. It must be related to the treasure in this woman's hand. Zhao Jingxian understood and then attacked with all her strength to firmly suppress the opponent. Although she couldn't win for the time being, it was impossible for the opponent to escape. All of a sudden, Lian Fei and Yao Susu's faces darkened, and an uncontrollable despair grew in their hearts.